Szanowni Państwo, dzień dobry. Nazywam się Anna Butrym i mam ogromną przyjemność w imieniu organizatora Ministerstwa Funduszy i Polityki Regionalnej powitać Państwa na dzisiejszej konferencji Instrument łącząc Europę, inwestycje w polski transport, efekty i wyzwania. Witam bardzo serdecznie zarówno gości zgromadzonych w sali, jak i tych, którzy połączyli się z nami
I'd like to welcome everyone who has joined us today here in the room and our online followers. You can listen to today's conference in Polish, in English. You can also use the sign language translation or audio description. We hope that you will be able to comfortably follow our conference and you will stay with us until the end. I'd like to welcome the host of today's event, Minister Grzegorz Puda. Also Minister Marcin Choroła, Secretary of State in the Ministry of Infrastructure, the proxy of the Government of the Republic of Poland for the Central Transport Hub. On behalf of the hosts, I'd like to welcome the representatives of the European Commission, who will also be joining us today with their speeches. I'd like to welcome Professor Paweł Wojciechowski, representative of the European Commission, DG Mobility.
Panią Annę Jensen, Europejskiego koordynatora korytarza sieci bazowej Baltic Adriatic. Panią Baltic, Adriatic, Europejskiego koordynatora korytarza sieci bazowej Morze
Północno-Morze European Coordinator of the Corridor of the TNT,
oraz pana Andreasa
North Sea, Baltic Sea, and Andreas Boschen, Director of the Department Connecting Europe Facility
i środowiska. Miło mi również powitać przedstawicieli beneficjentów, którzy sukcesami realizują projekty ze wsparciem instrumentu Łącząc Europę. Witam zatem serdecznie pana Mikołaja Wilda, prezesa zarządu Centralnego Portu Komunikacyjnego
Facility. I'd like to welcome Mikołaj Wilda, the president of the board of the Central Transport Hub, Tomasz Żuchowski, General Director, Acting General Director of the National Roads and Motorways, and Sławomir Michalewski, the Deputy President of the Board of the Seaport Gdańsk S.A., Radosław Celiński, Deputy President of the Board of PKP, and Józef Węgrecki, the member of the board of the Orlen S.A.
Proszę Państwa, dzisiejsze wydarzenie poświęcone będzie podsumowaniu
meeting will summarize the results of the call for proposals under Connecting Europe Facility. We will be sharing our experiences and discuss the future challenges in financing TNT and transport projects. And I'd like to ask now the host, Minister Grzegorz Puda, Minister of Funds and Regional Policy, to officially open today's conference. Thank you very much, Minister, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome everyone who are here with us in the room and everyone who is also following us online. Today, we just had an opportunity to sign something that has never happened before. We became a leader, European leader in obtaining European money. Well, this is not a news because we were one of the leaders for many years, but we are the leader in obtaining money under CEF, one of the most important facilities that is to build the consistency between regions and countries in the European Union. Well, it was a great pleasure for me to hear that as the ministry we can be proud of the largest network of connections in Europe under this facility. And I mean here the network of financial connections, because we were able to obtain 47 million euro for 7 investments from the facility. So we are the country that obtained the largest amount of money, and under this horizon, the last horizon, we are invincible because, well, the horizon has ended. Well, our ministry is the Ministry of Funds, but also regional policy. This is our name. So one of the areas of interest of our ministry is to build a regional policy. And under that task, we construct new roads, new connections, rail connections, we expand seaports. You could see it today. But also, ladies and gentlemen, under this perspective also, we have to think about supporting aviation in Europe. We've been joined by the proxy for Central Transport Hub, Marcin Horała, and I hope that he will tell us about the expansion of the Central Transport Hub and the policy in general. And I hope that we will be able, with the help of the European money, will be able to expand the road, rail and air connections. I would like to congratulate today's beneficiaries. I am very happy and I keep my fingers crossed for them. And I hope that we will have more events like this one. But the most important for us is not just the moment when we announce our new obligations, because this is an obligation for us as the ministry to help. But the most important for us is that Poles will be able to use the new infrastructure for the travel purposes very soon. So, and now I would also like to hear a few words about the infrastructure connected with the regional policy, what will happen in the Central Transport Hub. And I am very happy. I congratulate and I keep my fingers crossed for the new initiatives like that are also challenges. Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister, for your speech and for opening this conference. And now I'd like to ask Marcin Horała, Secretary of State in the Ministry of Infrastructure and the governmental proxy for Central Transport Hub. Ladies and gentlemen, Minister, Presidents, Directors. Yes, this is true. We are entering a new development era, new time of development, of Poland's development. The model that was based on cheap labor force, on subcontracting, is finished. This model was good for a certain time in order to fill the gaps, to match catch up with others, but it has been exhausted. Well, we are moving into the direction of being a net payer. We want to be part of the richest countries, and this is our goal. So what are the elements that are necessary for the further economic growth? How to do this remodeling? Well, the most important element here is the connectivity, the quality of the connections, so that various resources, commodities, capital resources are properly connected, so that there are no barriers caused by poor communication, by poor connections, and so that Poland is also well connected with the rest of Europe and world with the best quality connections, because wherever we have got agents, brokers, then they have their own rules, and we want those rules to support our country, to contribute to our country. Well, obviously, we still have some gaps on Polish transport map. Well, it is the result of some historic events. Just recently we were still able to see the history on the map. when we were looking at the transport map of Poland. So we need to match that with the contemporary needs of Polish society and economy. And we are doing that. For instance, the Central Transport Hub that defined the gaps, for instance, lack of a hub, of a connection, good connection part of a big system, global system. Well, also, we have very important investments in sea transport or road transport. Looking at the map right now, for many years, our geographical location that was not benefiting us for many years now can be a blessing, because we are in the middle of various trading trails. So, for instance, we have a sea motorway that starts in the Far East. So we cannot go farther. So we have to actually do unloading here around Baltic Sea and then change to other transportation means. Well, if it is to develop further, so belt
niżśrodkowoeuropejski, teren Polski jest tym najbardziej
initiative,
korzystnym
Chinese
sposobem.
initiative.
Geografia to definiuje, bo z geografii wynikają koszty, wynika czas,
matching
wynika
the
odległość,
geography. Geography is also defining the situation, because it tells us about the
my musimy zrobić wszystko, żeby z tego
about the
skorzystać,
cost,
żeby on
about
przez Polskę,
the
można powiedzieć, tak nie przeleciał jak przez rurę, że to co na wyjściu
situation. So
równa się
we don't want
temu,
Poland
co na wejściu,
to
ale
be
żeby
just a
to tutaj były
passing
centra
country. We
logistyczne,
want to
przeładunkowe,
locate here
intermodalność,
logistic
interkonektory,
centers,
wpięcie do różnych
intermodality,
systemów transportu,
interconnections,
zmiana
various
systemu
types of
transportu, kreowanie
transport,
wartości
changing
dodanej.
the
To wszystko daje
transport
rozwój, to
means,
wszystko może być
creation of
podstawą
value. This
wzrostu gospodarczego
can
Polski
be
na
the
długie
basis
lata i to
of
takiego wzrostu
Poland's
jakościowego, tego, w którym
economic growth, good
to już
quality
Polacy
economic
będą
growth,
szefami, to tutaj
where
będą centrale firm, to
Poles
tutaj będzie
will
wysoka
be
marża, wysoka
the
technologia.
bosses, where we
Tak
will
jakbyśmy
have the
chcieli, żeby
centers,
właśnie ten
high
poziom
margins,
unijnej
and
średniej
so on,
doganiać
in
i
order to
przeganiać,
catch
żeby
up
Polska
with the
mogła
EU
kwalifikować się
level,
do tych bardziej
so that
rozwiniętych, bogatszych
Poland
krajów w
is
wymiarze
defined
europejskim i
as
światowym.
the
Stąd konieczność
rich
wpisywania się również w
country.
europejskie
Therefore,
systemy
we
transportowe,
also
w
have to be
europejskie
part of
korytarze.
the
Cały
European
instrument
corridors
przekazu,
and
którego
transport
spotykamy,
system. So the
CEF jest
whole
temu właśnie dedykowany
facility
i stąd właśnie tak wysokie
is
oceny, ponieważ te
Connecting
nasze
Europe
koncepcje,
facility is
nasze
dedicated
projekty
to that,
idealnie
and
się w
that's
ten
why
system
our
pasują, tak
projects,
jak już
our
mówiliśmy
concepts
przy okazji
are a
podpisania
great
umów,
part
są
of
jak
that,
kolejne
and
elementy układanki, które
they
pasują
are just
do tej
like
ostatecznej
puzzles that
układanki,
match
którą będzie
the
optymalny dla
final
Polski i dla Europy
puzzle that will
model
be an
transportowy. Jeszcze
optimal
raz bardzo dziękuję
transport
wszystkim
model,
zaangażowanym w to
optimal for
przedsięwzięcie,
Poland and for
przede
Europe.
wszystkim
I'd like to
specjalistom z
thank
Ministerstwa
everyone
Funduszy,
who
którzy też można
has been
powiedzieć,
involved
nasza
in this
gospodarka już
event,
mogą zupełnie bez
also
kompleksów czuć
from
się
the Ministry of
specjalistami
Funds,
na
so that
europejskim
we
poziomie, którzy
can be
pomagają naszym
European
beneficjentom właśnie
specialists
wygrywać,
who help our
przedstawicielom
beneficiaries to
beneficjentów bardzo
win.
dziękuję za
I'd like
przygotowanie
to thank the
odpowiednich programów w
beneficiaries
tym rozdaniu,
for
ale
preparing
to tylko, można powiedzieć, ale
correct
też nie tylko
programs,
CEF Reflow, pewne zamknięcie perspektywy.
but
Ja jestem
this
przekonany,
is
że w nowej
just
perspektywie,
a
tam gdzie
close-up
wyjdziemy na poziom
of
grubych
the
miliardów,
previous financial
to
horizon.
również nasze projekty
I hope that
przygotowane przez tychże
under the
ekspertów
new
będą
horizon,
wygrywały i
our
będziemy realizować
projects will
naprawdę
also be
wielkie
winning,
projekty
and we will be
dla
able
Polski.
to
Bardzo
complete
dziękuję.
really
Bardzo
great
dziękuję, panie
projects for
ministrze.
Poland. Thank you very much. Thank
Bardzo
you,
dziękuję
Minister.
za te słowa, a my,
We
proszę
would like
państwa,
to
teraz
thank you for
łączymy się
your
z
words,
drugim
and
zabraniem
now
głosu.
we
Będę prosić
are
pana profesora Pawła
connecting
Wojciechowskiego,
with
przedstawiciela
Professor
Komisji
Paweł
Europejskiej z ramienia
Wojciechowski,
Dyrekcji Generalnej do
representative
Spraw
of the
Mobilności i
European
Transportu
Commission,
oraz
DG
Europejskiego
Mobility,
Koordynatora Korytarzy
and the
Sieci
European
Bazowej REN.
coordinator for the TNT corridor,
profesorze.
Rhine
Czy słyszymy się?
Alps. Thank you very much.
My również pana profesora słyszymy, dlatego z wielką przyjemnością oddaję scenę w pana ręce.
So now I give the floor to you.
Będę oczywiście mówił po angielsku.
I will also, of
W imieniu,
course, speak
Komisji Europejskiej
English on behalf of the
Dyrekcji
European Commission
DG
and,
Move.
and
Dear
DG
ministers,
Move.
dear beneficiaries and stakeholders, dear colleagues Katrin Trautmann and Jan Jensen, the European coordinators of the two corridors that cross Poland, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for inviting me for this conference. At the beginning, I would like to join Minister Puda in congratulating all of you who contributed to the signature of the contracts for the projects whose signature has just taken place shortly before the beginning of the conference, and from the reflow call. That's a great pleasure to be here with you. Of course, I will try to, from my perspective, I would like to emphasize that it's very important to look at the European perspective on CEF and its role that play in supporting the development of TEN-T. So first, I will start with the financial perspective on the use of CEF by Poland. Second, followed by some comparison to the most mature corridor in Europe, that is Rhine-Alpine, that I am privileged to coordinate. And third, I will end with the future changes of TEN-T policy that will affect funding and financing by 2030. CEF, as financial instrument, although with limited budget, has proved to be very effective in supporting the implementation of infrastructure projects both along the TEN-T network and within the core network corridors. Since 2014, overall CEF grants supported over 1,000 actions worth of more than 23 billion euro. Some 88% of this funding contributed to the development of the core network, and 71% has been allocated to rail projects. Among the member states, Poland, as Minister Puda mentioned during the press conference, is the biggest beneficiary of this instrument, receiving around 4.3 billion euro of the EU funding. This is about 19% of the total CEF contribution. Currently, the CEF funding supports 67 actions in the country, triggering overall investments in transport sector of more than 6 billion euro. The overwhelming majority of this financing, about 97% of the value, is supported by the cohesion envelope, while about 86% of the EU contribution relates to rail projects, which is significantly above the EU average. And so the last CEF 2020 reflow has been successful for Poland, competing with other member states for about 307.4 million available in grants. Poland has managed to secure EU co-financing for 7 projects. As Mr. Horała said earlier during the conference, totaling around 1/6 of the final budget of the CEF 2020 reflow call. To complete this picture, I would like to offer you a perspective of the Rhine-Alpine corridor, for which I am honored to coordinate as the European coordinator. The Rhine-Alpine corridor runs through the 6 countries, crossing major European economic centers in Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Italy. Being the shortest out of 9 corridors, the corridor is one of the busiest in Europe. Actually, more than 138 billion kilometers of freight are transported along the corridor. The catchment area of the corridor represents about 20% of the EU total GDP. So it's a huge, massive, and very mature corridor. So the corridor is well characterized by a well-developed multimodal transport infrastructure that overall meets the TEN-T criteria. However, the major challenge it faces is to accommodate its infrastructure capacity, especially in the railway sector, for the present and future traffic demand. The infrastructural needs of the corridor to make it fully functional are estimated at about 100 billion euro. The majority of investments undertaken in the Rhine-Alpine corridor is raised from the national public means. So it's quite different than from the case in Poland. In terms of in CEF 2014-2020 is currently supporting about 114 actions, So it's about 11% of all CEF-supported actions among, so this is for the Rhine-Alpine corridor, with overall amount of about close to 1 billion euro, but it's only about 4.5% of the CEF transport total contribution. That compares to about 19% of CEF contribution granted to Poland. All of the financing comes from the general envelope. Of course, there is no cohesion envelope, of course, with other more developing regions and countries. The lion's share of the financing is being devoted to railway projects, which accounts for almost 75% of the EU contribution dedicated to the Rhine-Alpine corridor. So it's slightly lower than in Poland, but it's higher than the EU average. While investing future challenges and opportunities for the transport sector, we need to bear in mind that ones that have been identified in the European Green Deal and the Smart and Sustainable Mobility Strategy. Both of these strategic documents set tangible and ambitious objectives to the achievement of the 2030 and 2050 perspectives, including the key of them is to reduce emissions from transport by 90% by 2050. TEN-T policy is crucial instrument, if we're coming to the third topic, crucial instrument in achieving EU transport objectives. An upcoming revision of TEN-T guidelines offer a real opportunity to make our trans-European transport network fit for the future. So the Commission is finalizing its work. It intends to adopt that legislative proposal on December 14th this year, so just in about 2 weeks. The overreaching goal remains unchanged, as it is crucial that TEN-T will be gradually completed within the foreseen deadlines, that is 2030, 2040, and 2050, for the core, extended core, and comprehensive network respectively. The achievement of these objectives is crucial to ensure the completion of the single European transport area, free of physical operational barriers, without missing links and bottlenecks in the transport infrastructure, and thus to increase the global competitiveness of the EU economy. The TEN-T revision will focus on strengthening the policy further while integrating new developments that are affecting the transport sector. The intention to make TEN-T more digital, resilient, and greener, thus supporting the transition towards smart, sustainable, efficient, and safe mobility, and stimulating the post-pandemic economic recovery. Therefore, key issues that will be addressed include the integration of the 9 core network corridors with the 11 rail freight corridors in a common set of European transport corridors. Second, the digitalization and innovation technological concept that will further increase efficiency of transport sector. Third, the coverage of specific transport infrastructure related aspects such as technical standards that would build resistance to natural or man-made disasters. Fourth, the increasing multimodality of transport system by giving more attention to transshipment, hubs, and urban nodes, which are very important with regard to last mile of journey. That is a case of, for example, ports like Port Gdynia that was just mentioned, for passengers and goods. The provision of the necessary charging and refueling infrastructure for alternative fuels in transport. The new CEF budget is of the amount of 25.8 billion euro, will again be instrumental in achieving the ambitions of the European Green Deal and the Smart and Sustainable Mobility Strategy, while continuing its support for development of the multimodal TEN-T. At least 60% of CEF2 funding will be allocated to actions supporting the EU climate objectives, in particular actions that will relate to sustainable modes of transport, and of course will will support the deployment of alternative fuels in all those transport nodes. A new alternative fuel infrastructure facility under CEF2 will support the latter actions with total budget of about 1.6 billion euro in years 2021 and 2023. What is important, the new CEF2 comes also with additional budget of about 1.7 billion euro to contribute to development of projects related to civilian military mobility. The approach will open more opportunities to support mature projects in Poland and will give me a great pleasure to hear that there is a lot of interest from Polish stakeholders to apply for grant funding offer under first CEF2 announced in September 2021. However, it is obvious that the new CEF will not satisfy high investment needs. In order to implement the current TEN-T regulation, total investments needs over the period 2021-2030 are estimated about 500 billion euro for the TEN-T core network. Within the 2021-2027 investors will have the possibility to turn to other means of support, such as European structural and infrastructure funds, the Recovery and Resilience Facility, as well as InvestEU. These instruments will relieve national budgets while giving a further boost to the implementation of the TEN-T network. Ladies and gentlemen, making the European transport future-proof is a huge task ahead of us. It will require continuous dialogue and cooperation between all levels: local, regional, national, and European. However, with the right motivation and determination, I believe we can achieve the goals set ahead of us for the benefits of societies and economies. Thank you very much for your attention. I wish you a successful conference.
Thank you very much. Dziękujemy bardzo serdecznie za to przemówienie. Dziękuję
Thank you
za
very
wszystkie
much for the
przemówienia
speech.
otwierające i
Thank you for all
przybliżające
the
dzisiejszą
speeches
tematykę,
opening
czyli CEF w
and
sektorze transportu.
describing
Podczas
today's
dzisiejszego
topics,
wydarzenia,
CEF
szanowni
in
państwo,
transport.
poznamy bliżej efekty
And
wdrażania
today we'll be learning
instrumentu
about the
łącząc
effects
Europę
of
w sektorze
implementing
transportu w
of
Polsce i w
Connecting
Europie
Europe
podczas
facility
panelu
in Europe and
dyskusyjnego.
in Poland. During the
Beneficjenci programów
discussion
CEF
panel, the
opowiedzą o swoich
beneficiaries of CEF
doświadczeniach
will
w
be talking
realizacji
about their
projektów transportowych z
experiences
udziałem
implementing
środków
transport
CEF.
projects using
Porozmawiamy
CEF
także o
funds. We'll
wyzwaniach,
also be
jakie
talking
przed
about the
nami w kontekście
challenges
nowej
that
perspektywy
we are
finansowej
facing in the
Unii
context of the
Europejskiej i o
new
kolejnych
financial
możliwościach, które daje
perspective
CEF
of
na
the
lata
EU and the new possibilities
2021-2027.
provided by
Możliwościach
CEF
rozwoju transportu oraz
for
transeuropejskiej
the
sieci
years
transportowej.
21-27 and the possibilities
Przechodzimy,
of
proszę
developing
Państwa,
the European
do
Transport
kolejnego
Network.
bloku
And
dzisiejszego
now we are passing on
wydarzenia.
to the
To CEF
next
Transport
part of this event, CEF Transport
2014-2020 w Polsce.
1420 in
Na
Poland.
scenę zapraszamy
And
pana
I
Jarosława
now invite to
Orlińskiego,
the
dyrektora
stage
Departamentu
Mr.
Programów
Jarosław
Infrastrukturalnych w
Orliński,
Ministerstwie Funduszy i
Director
Polityki
of the
Regionalnej.
Department of
Departament
Infrastructural
koordynuje wdrażanie
Programs
instrumentu
in the
łącząc Europę w
Ministry of
sektorze
Funds and
transportu
Regional
w Polsce, a
Policy.
pan dyrektor zaprezentuje dotychczasowe
The
osiągnięcia
director will
wykorzystania
present
wsparcia z
the
instrumentu
achievements
łącząc
so
Europę
far,
dla rozwoju
the things
polskiego
that were achieved
transportu.
using
Dyrektorze,
the
oddaję
support
scenę.
from the instrument.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you.
Witam Państwa serdecznie. Na
Good
początku
morning,
chciałem
ladies
bardzo
and gentlemen.
podziękować
First,
panu profesorowi
let me
Pawłowi
thank
Wojciechowskiemu,
Professor Paweł
przedstawicielowi
Wojciechowski,
Komisji Europejskiej,
representative of
za
the
wygłoszenie
European
słowa
Commission,
wstępnego, za
for this
reprezentowanie Komisji
introduction, for
Europejskiej, przedstawienie
representing the
informacji
Commission,
odnośnie
for
nie
presenting
tylko
the
CEF-u 1, o
information
którym
not
dzisiaj za
just
chwilkę
about
będę
the
mówił, ale też
CEF
i CEF-u
1
2,
that
tych
I'm going to
nowości,
talk
które
about, but
czekają
also
jako
CEF 2 and the
beneficjentów państwa
novelties
członkowskich,
that
beneficjentów
are ahead
inicjatywy Łącząc
for
Europę.
us
Proszę
as
Państwa, pozwolicie
members.
Państwo, że przedstawię prezentację
I will give my
dotyczącą
presentation
CEF-u
about
1.
CEF 1.
Próbuję ją teraz włączyć.
I'm trying now to
Chyba różnego rodzaju
start the
problem
presentation,
techniczny.
but
Mam
I
nadzieję, że
seem to
za
have a
chwilkę
technical problem.
zostanie to
Let's hope that this will be solved in
naprawione.
a moment.
Czekając jakby na wyświetlenie
So
prezentacji,
while
o właśnie,
waiting
jest już
for the
prezentacja
first slide,
wyświetlona.
okay, we
Bardzo
have the
dziękuję
presentation
za jej
already.
wyświetlenie, za
Thank you very
przedstawienie, proszę
much.
Państwa, w
Thank you
pigułce
very much
kilka
indeed. So in a
informacji na temat
nutshell, some
dzisiejszego
information about
spotkania, dzisiejszej
today's meeting,
prezentacji.
today's
Mamy w zasadzie
presentation.
podzielone na takie dwie części.
It's
Pierwsza część
divided
dotyczy
into
CEF-u
two
1, czyli
parts.
tych
The
osiągnięć,
first
o
part
których
about
już tutaj
CEF 1,
dzisiaj
the
trochę mówiliśmy.
achievements achievements that have been mentioned already today. Minister Puda, Minister Horała also mentioned our successes achieved under CEF 1, under the agreements that agreements were also signed today. And we want to bring closer the Connecting Europe facility to you. We want to show you what has been achieved, what has been completed, and in the second part of this meeting, I shall try to present information about the assumptions of CEF2 and what you can hope for under the competition that started in September that Professor Paweł Wojciechowski mentioned. So some general data. Next slide. Please. Here you can see information in a nutshell, information about the Connected Europe facility. This is centrally managed by the European Commission. It's in this way it's different in comparison to cohesion policy, where there is shared management. So in the cohesion policy there is shared management. In the case of CEF, even though as the Ministry of Funds and Regional Policy we are present in the implementation of this instrument, it must be admitted that this is an instrument that is centrally managed. So call for proposals and programming is handled by the Commission, and the grant agreements are signed by a specialized agency, that is CINEA. As regards the legal basis, you can see it here. This is the EU regulation from 2013. This instrument is divided into three areas. The biggest area as regards the financial elements is the transport sector, and as regards the 10T, Trans-European Transport Network, we also have the energy network, and we are dealing with the energy component here, also very important for the development of Europe, and the ICT element. This is not just an element, but an important area for the beneficiaries in Europe. You can also see on the graph information about the amounts that were allocated for this instrument. In total, as regards the transport instrument, this is over 24 billion euros. Within the energy sector, over 5 billion euros, and over 1 billion euro, that's the ICT sector. The important thing that makes different the cohesion policy different from CEF is the implementation period. On the one hand, in the cohesion policy, we are dealing with projects to be implemented by 23. In the case of CEF, we could say that we could assume that this is the end of 23 is the deadline, but because we are now coping with the pandemic, COVID-19, so thanks to the works of our ministry, our administration, but also thanks to the works of our colleagues from the Commission, from DG Mobility, we managed to develop solutions thanks to which the eligibility period was extended by 24 in justified cases, for which we thank you very much. We want to thank the Commission, we want to thank CINEA for this, for talking to us, and we managed together, we managed to somehow alleviate the requirements, like make them less strict, not just for Polish, but also other beneficiaries. This is information about the rules for applying. There is the national pool and over 4.2 billion euros. This is the Polish part. This was transferred from the cohesion policy to Connecting Europe facility, and the general one dedicated to all EU member states. As you can see, this is different because there is a lower level of co-financing. This is the main difference. In cohesion fund, this is up to 80% 75% of eligible costs, and in the case of the general one, we are dealing with a lower level of co-financing, in some cases up to 50%, but as a rule this is between 10 and 50%. Another thing worth saying, this is about the funds that you can see in the case of Poland, the cohesion fund, that's 4.2 billion euros. Actually, there is much more, and there are also the general pool funds for all. These are the European competitions. This graph shows where we are as compared to other member states. Minister Puda and Marcin Horała mentioned that we are the leader as regards the obtaining European funds. This is true. So the amounts of funds that Poland obtained, this is like huge amounts. We are on the first position as regards this regarding what we received from Connecting Europe facility, mostly for the rail sector, and the biggest beneficiary in the EU of Connecting Europe facility is PKP PLK SA, the Polish rails. Today, another 4 agreements have been signed for strategic projects. So a lot is being done also regarding the new programming period. The next slide, that's information about those involved in the instrument. I mentioned the role of the European Commission and CINEA that is strongly involved in the technical procedures, project monitoring, auditing, also matters connected with information promotion. But there is also a very important role of our ministry, Ministry of Funds and Regional Policy. This role presented here is very broad. This is not just connected with assistance for programming, contacting our beneficiaries for trivial matters as well, but there is also project monitoring and signing of the co-financing contracts and project monitoring. For this to be implemented flexibly and efficiently, there is another important institution that helps us. This is the Center for EU Transport Project. This is the last bullet on the slide, but this doesn't mean it's unimportant. The center is very significant in the process, as could be seen during today's press briefing. The contracts were signed, and the Center for EU Transport Project deals with matters connected with public procurement, with audits, with monitoring of project implementation, and also in preparation verification of projects that we receive and then go to CUPT. This is about cost and benefit analysis. We are very glad that we can work with CUPT, and we would like to thank the CUPT colleagues very much. Another nutshell information about the size of the support that we received. Minister Puda talked about it during the press briefing. 67 projects were co-financed by CINEA, by the Commission, and this was over 4.3 billion euros. 4.3 billion euros. And in this competition, in this trans-European competition with all the European member states, as regards the total value of the projects according to the contracts, it's 6.1 billion euro, and the actual value of the projects after the contracts were concluded, it's over 7.2 billion euro. As regards the average level of co-financing for Polish CEF projects, that's 72% in relation to eligible costs. I mentioned 75%, but we also need to remember about the general envelope where the level is much smaller and 61% in relation to actual costs. So what is the pool of the projects that we mentioned? In the 67 projects, most are this is the cohesion pool, and the biggest beneficiaries PKP, PLK. We also have this slightly smaller pool on which we are working to make it bigger in this period. The general 134 project amounting to 142 million euros. And the breakdown into sectors, you can see it here. The leader is the rail sector. This is the main leader. Most projects are dedicated to PKP PLK, as you can see, but also to projects under the general pool, for instance, Central Transport Hub. After today's event, we have 3 projects for the Central Transport Hub, and we also have seaports, also an important beneficiary of Connecting Europe facility. We also have the CESAR system, which is supported from Connecting Europe facility as well. This is for the common skies, common aviation area. We also have the road sector, slightly smaller scope, but I'm going to show you one of the projects. And there is also the transport sector from the perspective of IT. And I'm going to provide some information about that as well.
And
also important sector, so alternative sector. So we will hear about that more from the representatives of the beneficiaries who will tell you about that. And now, the money awarded, as I said, most of it has been dedicated to the rail sector. We have also road, sea, aviation, inland, and other segments as well supported. So Poland and Europe has the full scope of all components that are supported under this by this facility. Another slide. Yes, the next slide will present us the level of consumption of the money. Right now, we have a very high level of eligibility. And out of 100% of resources sent to CINEA, 90% of the money have been confirmed by the agency. That means that the works done by our ministry, but also the Center for EU Transport Projects, pays back, because this is centrally confirmed by the European Commission that the costs have been paid realistically and actually. So it is worth to mention that this is a huge work actually. So we in our ministry, also the Center for EU Transport Projects, are doing a lot of good work. On the next slide, we are also showing you how the money is used. The slide has already been shown. It is also connected with the refunds. Refunds that are also presented. Yes, this is the correct slide. So in addition to the refunds, the next level are also the advance payments. So in total, with the refunds and advance payments that are given to us from CINEA, until the end of this year, we will be refunded 60% of the money dedicated to Connecting Europe facility in Poland. This is a very high level of refund, especially that we are dealing just with 3 years of implementation. So we can say that we are on the safe side when it comes to the use of money that we received as support. And this slide has been presented. This is about the beneficiaries and leaders. First of all, the PKP, PLK, leader in Poland, but also in Europe when it comes to the money obtained and the use of money. Also, the General Directorate of National Roads and Motorways motorways as well as seaports that are occupying the third position when it comes to the use of money. Especially Gdański port is a leader among the seaports when it comes to obtaining the money. Well, implementation of this facility is also connected with challenges and problems. Well, we cooperate with the CINEA, so we have to deal with exchange rates because Poland is not using euro money. So that means also some savings sometimes. You perfectly know how the euro exchange rate, euro Polish zloty looks like. So we can do some savings, we can use it for new grants and so on. So we are doing modifications to use the whole money. Of course, the problems that we encounter are resolved, but they are connected with various elements, for instance, procedures, documentations, documents that are also important to implement the projects, administrative decisions. So we may safely say that the problems are there, but we also take actions that aim at resolving those problems. So we continue monitoring the transport projects, beneficiaries and other offices. We cooperate with public procurement office, also a rail and transport office. This is another cooperator. So I would like to thank all my colleagues from those institutions for their help, but we also use support of other ministries, Ministry of Infrastructure, for instance. We'd like to thank you for your support. Ministry of Environment, State Assets, Ministry of Finance. And this is a crucial ministry from the perspective of cash flows and liquidity. And PKP. So we would like to thank all our colleagues from the Ministry of Finance and from the payment agencies. Thank you for the support from PKP Energetyka. Also, we'd like to thank for the support other companies and institutions. And this is a short summary of all the projects. So when it comes to the projects, it's not just PKP PLK. There are other beneficiaries under the rail projects. So, for instance, cargo rail, you can see that here. So PKP has other beneficiaries. The central transport hub has been mentioned today. So I will not mention the projects that have already been mentioned today, but as you can see, there are other rail beneficiaries that are supported by the European money. Here are the examples of the projects, very important when it comes to the revenues for our budget. So we mentioned seaport in Gdańsk and Gdynia, also Szczecin, Świnoujście. Those ports are very important from the perspective of the money that is paid to our budget. So northern port in Świnoujście. So this is also Ria Baltica, new bridge on Bug River using the money from CEF. We also have E20 rail line and modernized Konin station, also south of our country. So new bridge in Kraków on Vistula River. We also have some bypass lines, for instance, in Warsaw, going through Powązki. Of course, also our road projects, a very important section of expressway, S61, part of Via Baltica. Some of it is already constructed under cohesion policy money, but also we have IT projects connected with traffic management. We also have some sea projects, such as Gdańsk, Gdynia, Świnoujście, Szczecin seaports. We also have a project that is connected with aviation traffic, air traffic, Caesar mentioned today, and there are projects that already have been completed, for instance, in Warsaw or in Gdynia. These are the electric car stations and also inland projects. These are just visualization. They are under completion. So a bridge here, also city traffic, transport. Those projects are under preparation. So thank you very much. And in the second part of my presentation, I will talk about the future CEF, which is the 2021-27. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Director, for your presentation. And we are moving on to the next stage. So we will start a new block, CEF Transport 2014-2020 from the EU perspective. We've just heard how in Poland we use the opportunities provided by the Connecting Europe facility, how the face of Polish transport is changing. Travel becomes more comfortable and safe. And now we go to the next block, and it will show us a more bigger perspective, European Union perspective. Now we will have the opportunity to hear Anna Jensen, European Coordinator of the Baltic Adriatic Core Network Corridor, who is joining us online.
Hello. We can hear each other and see each other on the screen as well.
Yes.
So it's great. So I give the stage over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Dear ministers, dear representatives of the Polish stakeholders, representatives of the Commission, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Anne Jensen, and I am the European Coordinator for the Baltic Adriatic Corridor. It's a pleasure for me to be with you today on the occasion of the Connecting Europe Facility event. Most of you will be familiar with the Baltic Adriatic Corridor as one of the important north-south axes of Poland, but I would nonetheless like to give a brief introduction to those of you who might not yet be familiar with it. The Baltic Adriatic Corridor runs from the Baltic ports in the north of Poland to the Adriatic ports in Slovenia and Italy. The alignment goes through 6 member states, and 4 of them are cohesion member states. While the corridor does not have flagship projects in name like the Brenner Tunnel or the Turin-Lyon Tunnel, there are still some large infrastructure projects. And I would like to give you a few examples which at the same time illustrates how the corridor thinking has really come to fruition. If we begin from the north, as has already been mentioned, works are currently ongoing on the rail last mile and hinterland connections to the ports of Świnoujście and Szczecin. And this is obvious important, since we have to have seamless rail connections to the ports, which in turn will provide for intermodal connectivity and help move freight onto the more sustainable transport modes, such as rail and shipping. Moving south, works are also ongoing on the major rail axis in Poland, the E59, which, as you know, connects the ports of Świnoujście and Szczecin to Wrocław, some 200 kilometers north of Ostrava, where the corridor runs further across the border to Chechnya. This is clearly a most important section. Without the effective functioning of this part of the corridor, the benefits of having access to the Baltic Sea would be greatly reduced by capacity constraints. And in this respect, we should remember that 3 of the 6 countries on the corridors are landlocked. So you provide the port for the Czech Republic, for Slovakia. This is very important. Further down south in Austria, on the corridor, we have 2 missing links of what will become the Alpine crossings, the Semmering-based tunnel, and the Korheim railway line. And these are large-scale projects, 8.9 billion euro investments. The Semmering-based tunnel and the Korheim railway line are on schedule to be completed by 2026 and 2024 respectively. And once they are completed, significant network benefit to the corridor will be both in terms of travel time. We will save hours. It will be much easier to go to Venice. And it also will be in terms of a reduced carbon footprint as an effect to the shift to rail from road. Further down south, I will mention the example of the rail hinterland connections to the port of Koper in Slovenia. Here we are looking at improving the throughput capacity of the corridor at one of the key maritime accesses to the Adriatic Sea basin. And one could say that the port of Koper is actually the access to the sea for Vienna, from the city of Vienna. So this is also cross-border and European. And with this quick glimpse of the corridor and some ongoing projects, I can inform you that the completion of the TEN-T on the corridor is progressing quite well. About 340 projects are ongoing and nearly 180 have been completed. And in total, we are carrying out around 600 projects. So we're doing fine. This is also reflected in the corridor having been highly successful in the Connecting Europe facility calls for proposal, in particular in view of the calls being highly competitive and oversubscribed. I think this corridor is one of the corridors, TEN-T corridors, that does the best in achieving these funds. In total, 100 actions have been co-funded by the CEF for a total support for 2.4 billion. And among member states on the corridor, Poland has by far been the largest beneficiary. If we, on top of the investments made on the corridor and the rest of the TEN-T, in fact, Poland has received around 4.3 billion of EU funding, corresponding to almost 20% of the total CEF project, I think that has been mentioned also before today. And currently, the CEF supports 68 actions in Poland, triggering overall investments in the transport sector of more than 6 billion euros. Quite considerable. But going back and recalling the situation when we had the first CEF regulation in 2013, I think it's safe to say that back then Poland also had one of the largest needs for investments in transport infrastructure. Having traveled myself in Poland before these major investments began to be carried out, it's obvious to see the tremendous effort you have made since then, with the support of the EU, to bring infrastructure up to modern standards and to reach compliance with the TEN-T regulation. I'm very pleased that you're still ambitious and you continue this strong run with a view to completion of the core TEN-T in 2030. And I'm happy to say that we now have a fresh pot of money with the CEF2 budget of almost 26 billion under the next financial perspective. And with this budget, we can take the next step towards the completion of the corridor and the core TEN-T. With the CEF2, you will have noticed that we, of course, pursue the completion of the TEN-T, but there are also new issues coming up, as has been mentioned, very much the greening of transport and digitalization. These two issues will come more to the fore in the new programming. We have the new European Green Deal that wants to reduce CO2 emissions by at least 55% by 2030. And there's also, with the sustainable and smart mobility strategy, an ambition to reduce the transport-related greenhouse gas emissions by 90% by 2050. This is truly ambitious and will, of course, mean that it has to be reflected in what we do on the infrastructure. Completing of the TEN-T, but also seeing the shift towards sustainable transport, and this will be reflected in the CEF2 calls, as has been mentioned. 60% of CEF2 will be allocated to action that support these goals, the greening and the digitalization. Also, there will be much more focus on urban transport, and I can say I've had some dialogues with several of the bigger urban nodes in Poland. I'm quite impressed with the things that are carried out to improve intermodality and the innovation and also the greening of transport, also within urban nodes, which is quite important. We have also the alternative fuels infrastructure, which is something which will come up very strongly in the new CEF2 regulation. So, with the closure of the 2014-2020 CEF period, this is just to give you a feel of what is expected on the CEF2 and to indicate where EU money will be put with the green agenda. As the European coordinator for the Baltic Adriatic corridor, I'll count on you to once again submit excellent application for the co-funding of mature projects with high European added value. You have certainly delivered, so I'll count on you to continue to deliver, and that we can complete the corridor to the benefit of Poland and to the benefit of Europe, having the good cross-border connections and seeing the greening of transport. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your interesting speech. Thank you very much for being with us today. Proszę Państwa, teraz czas na przemówienie pani
And now
Catherine
is the
Trautmann,
time
Europejskiej
for the
koordynator
speech of
korytarza sieci
Catherine
gazowej
Trautmann,
Morze Północne,
European
Morze
Coordinator
Bałtyckie. Pani koordynator
of the
właśnie
Core
chce
TEN-T
przedstawić jej
network,
na żywo. Zapraszam do
North
wysłuchania
Sea,
nagrania.
Baltic Sea. Madam Coordinator will be connecting online.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Catherine Trautmann, the coordinator of the North Sea Baltic corridor. This corridor knows, in the period of revision of the TEN-T regulation, a substantial extension to the north. It runs from Luleå in Sweden, via Finland, the 3 Baltic states, Poland, Germany, Belgium and the Netherlands, all the way to Rotterdam and Antwerp. The second important evolution is the convergence of the NSBC with the 8th rail freight corridor in the new transport corridor. This new design of the map will reinforce the role of Poland as a key platform for logistics and businesses in the center of Europe, a key hub for passengers and for cargoes. That's why I am particularly glad for the cooperation we have with Poland on different types of projects which have a strategic role for this country, but also for all European networks, like the priority given to the development of rail. A few days before this event, I could welcome the Solidarity Transport Hub as member of the stakeholders in the forum of the corridor, but we have also the participation of Cargotor from the platform of Malacevice. My corridor is the one which links the east to the west of Europe, And Poland is also part of one of the corridor's most prominent projects, the Rail Baltica line. Arriving from Tallinn in European gauge, Rail Baltica will connect the 3 Baltic states to Warsaw and via Warsaw to the rest of Central and Western Europe, especially Berlin. Poland's contribution to this project and its strong involvement in it is much appreciated, and is also appreciated the support of Finland, the other neighbor of the Baltic countries. With its dual use for passengers and freight, its high standards of speed, digitalization, and green use of energy, this train will be a true European example of how a cross-border project can become a model of performant and innovative system of transport, and how it gives, because of cooperation and new economical opportunities, a real source of safe and smooth mobility for people and reliable and sure mode for cargo to switch from road to rail. We had the Rail Baltica Industry Day on the 25th of November, and everyone could see the progress of construction of the infrastructure in all the Baltic states, but also in Poland. I want to express my gratitude to the Polish partners from the ministry and from PKP PLK, who decided to deliver so quickly their parts of the line with a strong cooperation with Lithuania, and now more and more also with RB Rail, in charge of the coordination and the seamless realization of the line. The message is well understood by our economic partners, especially the construction companies coming in the tenders, taking advantage from the investment made by states and European Commission jointly in this region of Europe is essential if we have the ambition to assure to the citizens a high level of life, of quality of life, a good growth of jobs, and added value for companies, the existing ones and the new. And you know well, in this moment of climate change and pandemic crisis, how it is important to give positive perspectives to young people, our chance for the future. And for them, crossing the borders so easily and rapidly will be their true reality, as it was before for me between Germany and France. The Connecting Europe facility is a major tool for my corridor because it provides a lot of the finance for it. In 2021, the portfolio of actions along the North Sea Baltic corridor comprised 119 grant agreements, which allocated 3.4 billion of CEF funding to the corridor. I invite you to have a look on the favorable situation of this country. Poland has 68 actions with an actual CEF support of 4.34 billion euros, which represents 19% of the total CEF budget. And this dotation generates an investment of 6 billion euros. Out of these, 22 actions are supporting the NSBC, my corridor, and the CEF contribution represents the half part of the total support, that is 2.1 billion euros, generating investments of 3 billion. The 9 network corridors and the 10T are first and foremost an infrastructure policy, but they are much more than that, when they help to complete the internal market. And now the North Sea Baltic corridor, just like the 10T as a whole, should develop into a policy tool to make our transport system greener and more sustainable. I want my corridor to become an accelerator of the green transition towards cleaner transport and cleaner fuels. The Connecting Europe facility will play an important role to finance it, but we also need political will to make it happen. In that sense, I count on Poland continued engagement with the corridor to complete it in 2030. And I hope that we will also be able to count on Poland's positive engagement with Europe as a whole, as Poland shows with its essential input in the Rail Baltica as a very famous cross-border project. I wish you an interesting and successful conference. Thank you.
Dziękujemy bardzo serdecznie za
Thank
to
you very much
wystąpienie,
indeed.
a my łączymy się
And
już z
now
panem
we
Andreasem
are
Boschenem,
connecting
dyrektorem
with Andreas
Departamentu
Boschen,
Connecting Europe Facility w
director
Europejskiej
of
Agencji
the
Wykonawczej do
Connecting
Spraw Klimatu,
Europe
Infrastruktury
Facility
i Środowiska,
Department
CINEA.
at CINEA.
Hello, can you hear me?
Good morning.
Good morning. We can hear you as well, so the stage is yours.
Dear Minister, dear coordinators, dear directors and dear participants, Dzień dobry from Brussels. It is a pleasure for me to be a speaker at this conference. The Connecting Europe facility has granted, like most previous speakers have said, 4.3 billion euros to transport infrastructure projects in Poland for the period 2014-2020. And indeed, Poland is by far the member state with the largest portfolio. 26 Polish beneficiaries are benefiting from CEF co-funding. And the largest share of our support goes to railway infrastructure projects, around 3.6 billion euros for 34 projects, and PKP PLK is by far our biggest beneficiary in terms of budget. Indeed, the development of railways is a truly historical moment for Poland, which currently looks like a big construction site. And the map prepared by PKP shows the huge scale of investments all over Poland. In the context of the European Year of the Rail, myself, I had the pleasure to travel through Poland with the Connecting Europe Express in September. I crossed the border between Slovakia and Poland. I went to Warsaw, Gdansk and Białystok, and this was indeed for me an impressive journey on your railway network. Some tracks are already upgraded and very comfortable, and many more sections are under construction. And I see Polish citizens and entrepreneurs starting to change their transport habits, shifting from road to rail. This is a long process, but we need this modal shift to implement the Green Deal and to save our planet. Next to rail, Polish beneficiaries were also active in other transport mode and received CEF funding for 16 maritime, 11 road and 7 air traffic management projects. And CEF support is in particular targeting investments on the two TEN-T core network corridors crossing Poland. We just heard Ann Jensen speaking about the Baltic Adriatic corridor from the northern Baltic seaports in Poland to the Czech border and beyond. We listened to Katrin Trautmann on the North Sea Baltic corridor, where in particular Rail Baltica is a very important major EU investment. And all these investments bring an increased EU added value while contributing to an environmental friendly transport sector. All these CEF projects are implemented in close cooperation between the beneficiaries, us in CINEA, and the Polish Ministry of Development Funds and Regional Policy. It is truly an impressive portfolio. We signed 68 grant agreements. We processed 147 amendments. So far, we made 280 payments, and we have visited Poland many times. Statistically, Polish actions have an average initial duration of 49 months, and they feature an average delay of 11 months, which is close to the European standard. The scope of these investments is huge, and we look forward to their full completion within the extended period and at the very latest by 2024. Regarding the absorption of CEF funds by the end of 2020, it stands at some 48%, again, very close to the European average. This is quite satisfactory, but it also means a lot remains to be done in the coming years. 48% spent means 52% still to spend. And we welcome your efforts to ensure publicity of EU funding. We see many billboards have been erected all over Poland, and some beneficiaries are also quite active on social media. Indeed, we have a success story to tell to our citizens because we invest their taxes into our sustainable future. With fast progressing projects, we will have many inauguration ceremonies in the coming years, and we from CINEA are looking forward to participating in these events. We see already now tangible results, and I picked some nice photos like Jarek Orlinski has done. For rail, we have the double track bridge over the River Bug, eliminating a huge bottleneck on the E75 line. And we have also works in the station of Trzebnia, and I'm really sorry for my bad Polish pronunciation. For maritime, the rail access to Gdynia is there and a modernized fairway in Gdansk. For road, you can see one of the 12 multi-standard fast charging stations in Brivno, and again, sorry for my pronunciation, and a new National Traffic Management Center in Warsaw. And I think the colleagues from CINEA and the Polish beneficiaries at the charging station were as lucky with the weather as we are today in Brussels. A lot remains to be achieved in terms of completing the TEN-T network. The European Green Deal calls for a reduction of 90% in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And the Smart and Sustainable Mobility Strategy sets up a roadmap to make all transport modes more sustainable. The investment needs to make Europe climate neutral by 2050 are high, requiring financing both from public and private sources. And the new 2021 to 2027 Connecting Europe facility is bringing more opportunities to support mature projects in Poland, especially focusing on low carbon modes of transport. We in CINEA will continue to support Polish beneficiaries and authorities in their efforts to build safer, greener, smarter, and more interoperable transport infrastructure along the TEN-T network. I encourage you to use CEF to further develop alternative fuel infrastructure, electricity and hydrogen recharging and refueling stations. The new alternative fuels infrastructure facility has a total budget of 1.5 billion euros for the years 2021 to 2023. And this facility combines EU grants with support from financial institutions. Equally important are ERTMS actions, both trackside and onboard. Let's work together for more safety and capacity in rail transport. Last but not least, significant support is foreseen for short sea shipping, traffic management systems, and multimodal transport that I reckon is of importance and interest to Poland. Finally, CEF now offers a new priority dedicated to military mobility and the use of transport infrastructure for civilian and defense purposes. This priority is endowed with a budget of 1.6 billion euro, and I guess this is again of particular importance for Poland due to its geographical location. Dear participants, in line with our motto, funding a green future for Europe, we in CINEA look forward to working with Polish authorities and beneficiaries to connect Europe and to deliver an efficient trans-European transport network. We expect that studies funded under CEF1 become now construction projects. Let's work together to recover from COVID and to build a climate-neutral Europe with a sustainable and smart transport sector. Good luck to all applicants and beneficiaries, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation and your time today. Szanowni Państwo,
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now finalizing this block in which, thanks to our wonderful speakers, we could hear more about the entire Connecting Europe facility and how it brings us closer to modern, greener, innovative transport. And before the other presentations, before the discussion panel, I'd like to invite you for a break. Please come back at 12:30, and I hope also those who are listening to the streaming will come back. So see you again at 12:30. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome after the break. We hope that you are still with us, and I'd like to inform those of you who are with us. I'd like to inform that our meeting is in Polish, translated into English, but also into Polish Sign Language. There is also audio description available, and we are moving to a new perspective on the projects that we discussed today. During the first part of our meeting, we had a horizontal perspective from the point of view of Ministry of Funds on the Polish part and from the European perspective. Now we would like to get to know the perspective of the beneficiaries who implemented the projects. And I'd like to welcome Mr. Paweł Engel, Chairman of the Transport Research Observatory, who will lead today's discussion with the panelists. He will be the co-host of today's conference. And right now I'd like to welcome the panelists to stay leave your masks on during the panel for safety reasons. And ladies and gentlemen, before we start our conversation, we would like to show you the perspective of the beneficiaries with the help of the presentations. And first, I'd like to ask Mr. Radosław Celiński, member of the Management Board of the PKP Polskie Linie Kolejowe S.A. And this presentation will be started with a very short clip, movie clip.
Dzień dobry, witam Państwa. Witam szczególnie Państwa tutaj zgromadzonych na sali, jak i również przed ekranami monitorów.
Follow us online, and now time for my presentation. It's a pleasure for me
Mam przyjemność przedstawić Państwu
present the biggest beneficiary of the CEF money in the European Union, PKP, Polish Railway. We are implementing in total 28 projects co-financed by CEF, totaling to 3.6 billion euro of funding. We want to build around 1,000 kilometers of new rail lines. The money we've received total to around 34% of the rail program that historically is the biggest modernization and construction rail program in Poland, worth almost 7.7 billion zloty. And as of today, out of 2,500 rails that will be modernized, that are to be modernized. A lot has been done already. And before the conference has started, I was asked to follow the short time I've been given. I will not read what is provided on the presentation, but I will just tell you about those things that you can't see on the screen. So, ladies and gentlemen, under the CEF, our company contracted 11.8 billion, and this contracting has been fulfilled this year, and we are implementing it right here. By the end of this year, certificates should reach 83% of the plan, so this will be worth around 15 billion zloty. How do we spend CEF money? As I've mentioned, out of the 28 projects, I'd like to give you some brief overview of some of the projects, and I will divide them into agglomeration, regional or port projects. Let's start with agglomerations. So we work on a 30 line, so Kraków Główny, Towarowy, Rudzice. This is the section. We want to modernize around 20 kilometers. So it is worth 1.2 billion zloty. This is a hard project that is conducted in the city, and right now we are 80% engaged. So Warszawa Zachodnia, Gołąbka, Warszawa Gdańska, so the bypass line. This is done 100%. The trains are going there, so 18 kilometers done, worth 230 million zloty. Warszawa, Włochy, Grodzisko Mazowiecki, 447 line. This is a very busy line, actually. The works have been completed. Now this is the time for approvals and acceptances, worth around 300 million zloty. Line 20, Warsaw-Poznań section. So Chaczew-Swarzędz section, to be exact. This is a regional project. So it is worth 2 billion zloty, and we've 85% through. And under this project we want to modernize 659 kilometers of traction and over 200 kilometers of tracks. Zabrze-Katowice, this is another project. It is worth 1.7 billion zloty. 144 kilometers of tracks will be modernized, and we are 83% through. So it will be completed under this horizon. So E75 project, it has been divided into 5 sections, whereas we've arrived at different stages on different sections. Warszawa Sadowne, Olczyżew, Białystok, we arrived at 75%, and some of the other sections are at the level of 1%. This is a large project, totaling to 5.5 billion zloty. And another regional project on E59 line, Bronki-Słonice and Poznań Główny, Szczecin-Dąbie. These are the sections. This is also very big project, 3.4 billion zloty worth. We want to modernize nearly 200 kilometers of traction. We are 63% through. Another project from the western region, Wrocław-Poznań section, and the border of Dolnośląskie, Czempin. And this project is practically finished, has practically been finished. We've arrived at 95%, and the value of the project is 1.3 billion zloty. And this will be
To
one
już
of the
będzie
last
jeden z
projects,
ostatnich projektów, jeśli chodzi o
regional
regionalne
projects.
projekty
This
z
is
obszaru Śląska,
Śląskie Województwo,
wartości
over
1,4
4
miliarda
billion
złotych.
zloty,
Jego
and
zaangażowanie obecne wynosi
54%
54%.
through. We want to
W ramach tego projektu
modernize
chcemy zmodernizować
47
47
kilometers of
wymienić 56 km sieci
tracks
trakcyjnej
and
oraz
57 kilometers of
119
traction
rozjazdów.
and change.
Generalnie instrument w postaci CEF-u, tak?
CEF.
Wszystko, co
All
robimy,
we
to
do,
robimy dla
we do
poprawy
to improve the
komfortu,
comfort,
bezpieczeństwa,
safety
czy też
and
punktualności,
punctuality, so
tak
that
żeby
the
te
trains,
pociągi mogły
passenger
poruszać się
trains
pociągi
can
pasażerskie z prędkością
go by
około 160
160
km/h,
kilometers per
a pociągi
hour,
towarowe z
and
prędkością
the
120 km na
cargo
godzinę.
trains 120
wszystko się-
kilometers
to, co
per
się
hour.
dzieje
So
na
everything
torach
that happens on the modernized
Podlega zazwyczaj
tracks,
jeszcze zwiększona jest
involves
zmodernizowana jest
modernization of
część
the automation,
automatyki
rail
kolejowej, która
automation,
pozwala
which
zwiększyć
actually
przepustowość i
improves
wpływa na poprawę
capacity and
bezpieczeństwa.
safety. And the seaport projects.
portowe
Right now,
obecnie realizowane
we
są,
are improving the
poprawa
access to
dostępu
4
do czterech
seaports
portów morskich,
in
Gdańsku,
Gdańsk,
Gdyni,
Gdynia, Szczecin
Szczecinie
and
i
Świnoujście.
Świnoujściu.
The total value
Łączna
of
wartość
those
tych
4 projects
czterech,
is
projektów to
3.6
jest
billion
3,6
zloty.
miliarda złotych.
And we've
Zaangażowanie
arrived
jest pomiędzy
between
51
51
a
and 80% of
realizacji.
completion
Wszystkie te
stage.
projekty portowe
All those seaport
charakteryzują się
projects
z dość dużą
involve
intensyfikacją prac punktowych.
big intensity
Wszystkie
of
projekty
point
mają na celu
works.
przygotowanie
They
linii
prepare the
kolejowej do
rail line to
obsługi
support
tych dłuższych
longer
pociągów o
trains,
długości 750 metrów, przy
750
obciążeniu osi
meters
221
long
kilotonów.
and heavy as well.
Dla
In
pełnego
order to use
wykorzystania
the
przepustowości
capacity, the throughput to full extent, then we apply ERTMS, ETCS,
1000 km linii kolejowej.
and today
Dzisiaj zostały w godzinie
morning
dzisiaj
we
zostało rano
signed
podpisane
4
kolejne
new
4
contracts
umowy
for
na prace
design
projektowe,
works
o
that
których
were
na pewno mówił
mentioned
pan
by
prezes
President
Ireneusz
Ireneusz
Merchel
Merchel
że tak
during
powiem, w
the
porannej
morning
części
part of
konferencji.
our conference. Ladies and gentlemen,
Szanowni Państwo,
everything
no,
that
wszystko
is
to, co
covered
obejmuje
by modernization of rail lines with the help of CEF money
no to jest tak jak już wspominałem. Chcemy infrastrukturę pasażerską,
well, applies
infrastrukturę
to
kolejową dostosować do
passenger and
nowych
cargo
potrzeb, do nowych wyzwań,
infrastructure
tak żeby
that
nasza
we
polska
want
kolej
to adapt to
mogła
new
poruszać się
modern
po liniach
conditions so that it is
bezpiecznych,
safe,
obciążeniem przy zachowaniu dla poprawy bezpieczeństwa przy
uses
nowoczesnej automatyce,
modern automation
z
infrastructure.
dostępem do
We want
wszystkich
to
peronów
offer
dla osób z
the
ograniczeniem
access to
poruszania się,
everyone with
a to być kolej
mobility
nowoczesna, bezpieczna i
problems.
dostępna
So
dla
we
wszystkich.
want to make the rail accessible
wspomniałem na
and safe
początku,
for everyone. So under this
Spółka w ramach
horizon,
tej perspektywy
the company
realizuje projekty cefowe
has
z dofinansowaniem na poziomie 3,6
been
miliarda euro.
receiving
Dziękuję
3.6
za uwagę.
billion
Nie wiem, czy
euro
wyrobiłem się
to
w czasie,
implement
który mi
the
wyznaczyli
projects under this
organizatorzy, ale no,
horizon.
robiłem co mogłem,
So
żeby
I did what I could to actually
Dziękuję bardzo serdecznie za
fit
prezentację.
into the plan.
bardzo, proszę
Thank you
państwa.
very
To,
much.
co
What
pokazał
we've
nam
seen
przed chwilą
from
pan prezes
Radosław Celiński shows us
pokazuje,
that
że
Polish
Polska
rail
kolej się
is
zmienia.
changing
Pokazuje również,
and
że
that
bardzo istotny udział w tej
a
zmianie
very
mają
important
właśnie
part
środki instrumentu
here
łącząc
play the
Europę
money
zarówno
from
na
CEF
poziomie kolei
on the
aglomeracyjnej,
agglomeration
na poziomie
regional
regionów,
level, but
jak i na tym
also
bardzo istotnym
on
poziomie poprawy
the cargo
przewozu
level.
ładunków.
Thank you very much. Please stay with us on the stage for the panel because we will discuss some of the issues further. And now I'd like Mr. Tomasz Żuchowski, Acting General Director of National Roads and Motorways. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and
Dzień dobry, witam
gentlemen.
Państwa
I
serdecznie.
represent
Reprezentuję
the
Generalną Dyrekcję Dróg Krajowych i
General
Autostrad,
Directorate for
które
National
w
Roads
projektach
and Motorways,
infrastrukturalnych, również tych, które wykorzystują
and
środki
which also
z CEF-u,
use funds
Connected Europe
of
and
the
Facility,
CEF.
łączą
It's
Polskę
about
od Morza aż do Tatr,
connecting
Europę od wschodu do
Europe
zachodu, od północy
from
na
north
południe.
to south, from
To jest
east
tej okazji też
to
mam
west.
przygotowaną prezentację,
I also have a
przekazanie,
presentation, and
to myślę, że będzie bardziej
można
I think it
zobrazować
will
to, co
illustrate what we
budujemy,
build
wykorzystując te
using
środki, w
these
jaki
funds
sposób i
and
gdzie
where we locate
je
them.
umiejscawiamy.
Prezentacja już zaraz się pojawi.
Thank you.
Dziękuję uprzejmie. Więc,
Ladies and
szanowni
gentlemen,
państwo,
we connect Europe
łączymy Europę,
using the funds in
wykorzystując
different
środki w różnych
areas.
obszarach. Tutaj przed
A
chwilą mieliśmy
moment
środki
ago,
kolejowe, dzisiaj
funds
mamy
for
środki,
rails were mentioned.
czyli
Now
inwestycje
it's
kolejowe,
about
teraz mamy
road
inwestycje drogowe i
investments,
patrząc
and
oczywiście na korzyści,
there are
myślę, że
measurable
wymierne i
benefits,
przede wszystkim
and
mają
they are to be
sprzyjać jak
favorable for
najsprawniejszemu
efficient
komunikowaniu się zarówno
transport
wewnątrz
within
wspólnoty
the EU
europejskiej,
and
również na
also
terenie
within
wszystkich regionów
Poland.
polskich. To
This
jest
is
sieć
a
nowoczesna transeuropejskich
modern
sieci drogowych o
network
maksymalnej
of
wydajności, szanując
trans-European roads.
wszystkie aspekty, czyli
respecting all the
techniczno-środowiskowo-społeczne, aby ten
and
zrównoważony rozwój
environmental
w tym obszarze był
aspects.
jak najbardziej
From the
spójny.
point of view
Z
of
perspektywy
the use of
wykorzystania
the
tych środków
funds,
mamy
we
takie
have
projekty chociażby jak
S61 project
droga Via
via
Baltica,
Baltica,
a propos kolejarzy mamy
Via Baltica,
Via Baltica, a propos
and there are the
inwestycji drogowych. Tutaj
particular
mamy poszczególne
sections.
odcinki, mamy generalnie rzecz ujmując
So
kwestie chociażby realizacji tej
there is the
inwestycji na odcinku
implementation of
110
this one
km,
at the section of
przeciwników realizacyjnych,
110
jak również
kilometers,
krajowy system
and
zarządzania
also
ruchem, czyli
the
to, co
National
szykujemy jako
Traffic
taki pierwszy
Management
projekt w
System
Europie
and
zintegrowanego
integrated
systemu
system for the
zarządzania
management
siecią
of
drogową,
the roads
dynamicznego zarządzania,
network,
o której też
dynamic
kilka
system.
aspektów będę chciał wskazać.
S61, this
S61,
section is
ten
already
odcinek już jeździ
operational
od maja tego roku, tu mamy
since
druga
May
jezdnia
this
obwodnicy
year.
Szczuczyna.
Project
Wartość
value,
projektu, wartość
contract
umowy oczywiście
value.
udostępnione 15 maja do ruchu.
This road
Dla
is
wszystkich
available
kierowców można z
since
tej
May
jezdni korzystać.
15th.
No i
And now
pokazujemy, jak
in the
wygląda
pictures you
to
can
w
see how
praktyce.
this looks in
Dla wszystkich,
practice,
którzy
and
nie
we
byli, oczywiście
encourage you
zachęcamy
to
do podróży
travel
w
in
te regiony.
this area.
Kolejna
The
kwestia
next
to jest
one,
odcinek
this
S61
is
Szczuczynek Południe, odcinek w realizacji.
Południe,
Mamy
advancement
zaawansowanie
over
ponad
82%,
82%,
project
wartość projektu prawie
value
700
almost
milionów
700
Oczywiście
million
dofinansowanie prawie
zloty,
380 milionów. To jest ten odcinek,
contribution
myślę, kluczowy z perspektywy tej poruszania się
almost
na szlaku Litwa, połączenie z S8 i potem dalej
380
rozjazd na
million.
różne strony naszego kraju Europy.
That's how it looks in
Tak to wygląda w
practice.
praktyce.
Szczuczyn
Ta
Ełk
inwestycja
Południe.
Szczuczyn
The
Południe.
next point
Kolejna kwestia
in
w
this
ramach tego
project,
projektu,
the
wartość
project
projektu
value
całą prawie
almost
685
685 million
milionów
zloty,
złotych, długość
length
prawie 23 km, to
23
jest
kilometers,
Szczuczyn
Szczuczyn
Budzisko, a
to
więc
the
do
border with
granicy z
Lithuania.
Litwą.
The
Wartość,
contract is
kontrakt
under
jest w realizacji,
implementation
zaawansowanie ponad
and
57%,
is to be
kwestia oddania toru
completed
grudzień
by
przyszłego
December
roku.
next year. That's how
Tak
it looks in
wygląda
the photos.
realizacja w praktyce. Zarówno
Both
wizerunkowo, myślę, jak
image-wise and
technicznie
technically it's
inwestycja idzie
progressing
sprawnie.
nicely. The
Kolejny
next one,
projekt to jest
S61,
odcinek S61
wysokie
Wysokie Raczki.
You can see this on the
Pokazujemy go
map.
na mapie.
Project value
Wartość
over
projektu ponad 484
484
miliony,
million.
z czego
EU
dofinansowanie
contribution
środków unijnych to jest
almost
prawie 380 milionów złotych, długość
380
prawie 20, ponad 20
million.
kilometrów. I tutaj w tym roku chcemy ten odcinek oddać kierowcom.
So not
Jak wiem,
much
zostało niedużo
time
czasu do
is
końca
left,
roku,
but
natomiast myślę,
this
że
is
jesteśmy na
just
ostatniej
the
prostej.
final stage.
Tak wygląda
That's how the road
w
looks in
praktyce ta droga.
practice. Next one,
Kolejna kwestia to jest odcinek S61 obwodnica Suwałk. Ona już funkcjonuje od ponad 2 lat. Generalnie rzecz ujmując, projekt zrealizowany. Całość wartość umowy, projekt i budowę prawie 300 milionów złotych.
That's how it
Tak
looks
wygląda w praktyce
in
odcinek
practice.
obwodnicy Suwałk S61.
Next,
Kolejna kwestia to jest
the end
koniec obwodnicy Suwałk do granicy w Budzisku z obwodnicą Przypliszek w miejscowości odcinki w realizacji. Tutaj w tym momencie wartość umowy o projekt i budowę dla łącznie to jest ponad miliard złotych, dofinansowanie z Unii prawie 380 milionów złotych. Tak wygląda ten plac budowy w praktyce. Zdjęcia z sezonu tutaj jesiennego. No i krajowy system zarządzania ruchem. Ta perełka, która powiedzmy myślę dla wielu jest tajemnicą, co to będzie, jak to będzie wyglądało. Generalnie rzecz ujmując jest to oczywiście projektem takim pierwszym na skalę europejską w zakresie wdrożenia ITS-ów, czyli tak naprawdę inteligentnych systemów transportowych, tak abyśmy rzeczywiście jadąc tymi drogami nie tylko napotykali na korki, ale żeby ten system zarządzania i sterowania tym ruchem był dynamiczny. Mamy nad naszymi drogami często obserwujemy tablice zmiennej treści. Natomiast te tablice zmiennej treści mają być skoordynowane z oznakowaniem pionowym, sygnalizacjami, tak aby jadąc chociażby z kierunku Gdańska w stronę Warszawy, dalej Łódź, bo ten projekt ten odcinek obowiązuje, Łódź, Wrocław i Katowice, aby powiedzmy to zarządzanie było dynamiczne, aby w
management
przypadku
is
zatorów
dynamic.
czy
If
wypadku
there
pod
are
Warszawą już
bottlenecks
odpowiednio
close
wcześniej
to
wiedzieć, gdzie na
Warsaw,
którym węźle
we are
zjechać,
notified
albo ile czasu pozostajemy w korku, jeżeli
early
będziemy
enough
skupiali się na odcinku,
about
chociażby, którym
such
zamierzamy
problems, and
podróżować.
we can change
Więc ten
the
kwestia tego
route.
dynamicznego
This is
systemu jest
divided
podzielona
into
na
4
4
regional
projekty, tak naprawdę
projects, one
regionalne, jeden
central
projekt centralny.
project. All the
W
contracts
tym
have
momencie
been
mamy wszystkie
signed, and
umowy
the
podpisane
heart
i
of
serce
the
tego
system
systemu
will be
znajdowało będzie się tutaj
located in the building
w
where the
budynku, gdzie jest
tunnel
centrum
management
zarządzania
system
tunelem w ciągu
is.
południowej obwodnicy Warszawy. Tutaj myślę, że też na
At
koniec,
the
jeśli
end,
Państwo
we'll show you
pozwolicie,
a
to
2-minute
dwuminutowy film
video how the
pokażemy, jak
system
będzie ten
is going
system
to
działał.
work.
No i generalnie rzecz mówiąc, tutaj
We
pokrywamy sieć
actually
tą TEN-T.
cover the
Tak naprawdę w tym zakresie w 28% tej sieci bazowej tutaj
in
pokazujemy też
yellow
tym żółtym kolorem, jak
we
wygląda
are
kwestia
showing
dotycząca
how this looks
tego
for the
pierwszego
first
projektu. No i
project,
chcielibyśmy
and
oczywiście
we
móc
would like
rozwijać
to be
dalej te
able to
projekty
develop the
wdrożeniowe,
implementation
aby
projects
ten
further
system
to make
rzeczywiście
this system
jak
as
najsprawniej
efficient as possible.
zafunkcjonował. Tutaj
This is the
pokazujemy
building
budynek,
where
w
the
którym
management
ten powiedzmy centrum zarządzania
center, traffic management center will be
ruchem będzie się
located.
mieściło.
The
To jest
building
akurat
on
mówię
the
budynek,
first
na
floor
którym
is
na
the
pierwszej
tunnel
kondygnacji
management
jest centrum
center, and the
zarządzania
second
tunelem,
floor
a na drugiej
the
kondygnacji
national
będzie centrum
traffic
zarządzania, krajowy
management
centrum zarządzania
system from
ruchem
this
w ramach tegoż
project.
projektu.
This is how
I
the
generalnie rzecz mówiąc,
center
to jest
is
wyposażenie
equipped,
tego
because
centrum, bo
actually
centrum
it's
już jest
already
gotowe, generalnie rzecz mówiąc,
ready.
spinamy te
We
wszystkie
are now
systemy,
working
pracujemy
on
nad
the
umową.
contract, and
Myślę,
I
że w
believe then in
2023 roku
23 we
powinniśmy
can show you
pokazać,
in
jak ten
practice
system w
how this
praktyce
functions.
funkcjonuje.
And to sum
I
up
teraz
about
podsumowując,
CEF, we have
propos
CEF
CEF-u,
in the
mamy
first
CEF powiedzmy w
version.
wersji pierwszej,
We are
pretendujemy do kolejnych projektów
hoping for
CEF-owskich, bo
the
myślę, to
next
jest
CEF
bardzo
projects.
ważna
I believe
kwestia,
this is a
inicjatywa,
very important
abyśmy również
initiative to
korzystali
use
z
the
tego transgranicznego
cross-border
systemu, łącząc
system,
Polskę, łącząc z krajami
connecting
Europy. I
Poland
tutaj
with the other European
chcielibyśmy
countries.
i pretendujemy
We would
łącznie
like
też ze
to,
Słowakami, którzy
with
są trochę
Slovaks,
powiedzmy w
where
innym miejscu,
Slovaks
tam
are at a
powiedzmy mają
slightly
proces
different stage,
przygotowawczy,
they have
natomiast
the
chcielibyśmy
preparatory
tutaj
process,
w
but
ramach
we
tegoż
would like
projektu w tym
to
drugim podejściu zrealizować
implement
dwa
two
odcinki przygraniczne, to są
sections
węzły
close to the
drogi jest
border,
19
and the
na
length is
długości
over
ponad 28
28
km,
kilometers
aby je powiedzmy tutaj
S19
skutecznie
road,
zrealizować
and
w
the
najbliższych latach.
estimated
Koszty
cost is
szacunkowe to jest około
2.5
miliarda
billion
złotych.
zloty.
No i kolejna kwestia to jest podejście
And
oczywiście do
the next point
systemu
is
zarządzania
the
ruchem w wersji
traffic
2.0.
management
Tutaj też są
2.0.
nasze ambicje takie, aby rzeczywiście około 1900
We would
nowych
like to
kilometrów dróg
cover
również objąć tym systemem
another
zarządzania ruchem na
1900
kolejnych
kilometers
odcinkach.
with the system.
No i
And
teraz,
now
jeśli Państwo
we would
pozwolicie, to
like
na
to
koniec
show
byśmy
you
pokazali,
how
jak wygląda
this looks, how
zajawka,
the
że się tak
trailer
wyrażę,
for
krajowego systemu
the
zarządzania ruchem w wersji,
national
którą
traffic
chcielibyśmy na
management
naszych drogach
system
wdrożyć.
looks.
Dziękuję bardzo. Komfort
Thank you very much.
Dziękuję bardzo. Komfort, bezpieczeństwo i komunikacja myślę, że są kluczowe. Dziękuję serdecznie.
Thank you very much for this presentation.
Dziękujemy bardzo. Proszę Państwa, na
Based on the
przykładzie tych
example of the
projektów
road
drogowych można
projects,
zobaczyć,
we can
jak
see
bardzo
how
dosłownie
literally
CEF
CEF
łączy
connects
Europę.
Europe.
Nie wiem, czy zwróciliście Państwo uwagę,
Road
ale droga
61
S61
is the
stanowi tak
main
naprawdę
and
główne i niemal jedyne
almost
połączenie
the
drogowe
only
wśród krajów
connection of
członkowskich
three
Unii
EU member states
z
with the
pozostałą
other
częścią
parts
wspólnoty.
of the
Stąd naprawdę
community.
widać
This
wagę
shows
tego
the weight
finansowania i
and
wagę tych
significance of these projects.
Dziękujemy i
Now we
przenosimy
move
się
to
do
the next
kolejnej
presentation
prezentacji. Zabrał
from
głos
Sławomir
teraz poprosimy
Michalewski,
Sławomira
Vice
Michalewskiego,
Chairman
wiceprezesa
of
zarządu
the
portu
board
morskiego
of
Gdańsk S.A.
the Seaport Gdańsk S.A. Good afternoon,
Dzień dobry
ladies
Państwu,
and
witam
gentlemen.
bardzo serdecznie. Witam
I'd like to
tutaj
welcome the
panelistów,
panelists and
witam bardzo
those
serdecznie osoby zgromadzone przed
listening online.
monitorami.
Thank you very
Bardzo
much
dziękuję
for this
za
presentation.
zaproszenie i
I'd
chciałem
like
się
to
trochę odnieść też
refer to the context of
kontekstu
this
tej
conference.
konferencji,
We are
ponieważ
talking
rozmawiamy o
about
różnego
various
rodzaju
modes of transport.
jak to się mówi.
But we need
Natomiast
to
trzeba
remember
pamiętać, że tym wszystkim,
that
co
what makes
powoduje,
Europe
że Europa jest
connected with the
połączona ze
world
światem,
are
są właśnie
seaports.
porty morskie. Dzięki
It is
temu
thanks to
mogą
them that
funkcjonować
other
takie
modes of
inne środki
transport can
transportu, jak
function,
transport
road transport
samochodowy,
or rail
jak sam
transport.
transport kolejowy.
We need to
Trzeba pamiętać o
remember
jednej
about the
bardzo
fundamental
zasadniczej kwestii,
thing, that
mianowicie,
it is sea
że to właśnie
transport that
transport
moves
morski przemieszcza
80% of
80%
cargoes
ładunków
in the
na
world,
świecie. Jednocześnie jest to
while being the
najbardziej
most
ekologiczny
environmentally
środek transportu.
friendly mode of
Emisja, jaką
transport. The emissions
mają
from ships,
statki, to
that's
jest około tylko
3%
3%
of the
śladu
carbon
węglowego. W
footprint
porównaniu
in comparison
do innych
to
środków
other modes of
transportu,
transport per
statek
1
na
ton
1 tonokilometr
kilometer.
emituje 3
A ship
gramy
emits 3
dwutlenku
grams
węgla.
of CO2, a
Samolot to jest
plane
około 600 gramów
600
dwutlenku węgla,
grams,
natomiast
and
transport
road
kołowy to jest od 50 do
transport around
150 gramów. Teraz
150 grams.
inwestycje cefowskie,
And
które
CEF
zostały przeznaczone
investments
właśnie na skomunikowanie
allocated
portów
for
ze światem,
connecting
ale
the
dalej
ports to
też
the world
z zapleczem
are
tych
of
portów mają ogromne
great
znaczenie dla
importance to the
społeczeństwa. I to
society.
widać
This
też
is
w tej
also
nowej
visible
perspektywie
in the
CEF-u,
new
na co
CEF
stawia
perspective.
Komisja Europejska, czyli
So
na jak
the
najmniejszy
smallest
ślad
possible
węglowy
carbon
i też
footprint,
w tym
that's one of
kierunku
the
te
Commission's
inwestycje, które będziemy chcieli
priorities.
realizować w następnej
And
perspektywie,
also
będą również nosiły
the
ten
investments
bardzo
that we
niski
implement in the
ślad
next perspective will
węglowy.
have a very low carbon
Mamy
footprint.
Więc może jeszcze trochę się cofnę, żeby Państwa
So, by way of
trochę
introduction
w
to
port Gdańsk.
Port
Mianowicie
Gdańsk.
Port
It is
dzieli się na
divided into
dwa-
two ports.
na dwa porty.
The
Mianowicie jest to
internal
port
port, which
wewnętrzny, który
is
widzimy na
visible in
górnej
the upper
części
part
slajdu.
of the
Jest to
slide,
część
part
portu
of the
historycznego, który w
historic
największym
port,
stopniu środki CEF-owskie były przeznaczone
where
w tej
CEF
pierwszej
funds were
perspektywie
involved in
oraz
the
na dolnej
first
części mamy port
period, and the
zewnętrzny,
second
który
one
w dużej mierze został
is the
ukształtowany w
outer
latach
port
70. w wyniku inwestycji
formed
w bazę eksportową węgla
largely
oraz
formed thanks to the
importową ropy
investments in
naftowej.
the
Od
transport
2008 roku
basis.
funkcjonuje
The
tam
biggest
największy
Baltic
na
container
Bałtyku
terminal
kontenerowy,
in
jaki jest terminal
DCT terminal.
Port Gdańsk jest największym
Gdańsk
portem
port is
polskim,
Poland's
jeżeli
biggest
chodzi o
port as
przeładunki.
regards
W tym
reloading.
roku
Will have about
przypuszczam, że będziemy mieli
52
około
million
52
ton
milionów ton
of
przeładunku. Obsługuje, tak jak
reloading,
Państwo
mainly
widzicie,
caters to
głównie
Polish
polski
imports
import, w mniejszym
and less
stopniu
to exports.
eksport. Biorąc pod
Considering
uwagę
Polish exports
wielkość
for the 9
polskiego
months of this
eksportu
year,
za
this
9
is about
miesięcy bieżącego roku, to jest około 248 miliardów dolarów. Jakąś część również tego eksportu przechodzi.
So we have a
Mamy
positive,
dodatnie saldo około 2
positive
miliardy,
balance
więc
around
podobnie,
2
jeżeli chodzi o
billion.
import. Do portu
2
w Gdańsku
times a week,
2 razy w
the world's
tygodniu
biggest
zawijają największe kontenerowce świata. Są to
container
jednostki,
ships
które są w stanie
arrive,
przejść cieśniny duńskie.
and
I 2 razy w tygodniu do portu w
cargo
Gdańsku
worth
wpływają
around a
ładunki o
billion
wartości około
dollar
miliarda dolarów, które są na tego typu.
on such vessels.
tego typu jednostkach.
And we are the
Tak jak
biggest
wspomniałem,
container
jesteśmy
terminal, the
największym
biggest
terminalem
container
kontenerowym,
port
portem
on the
kontenerowym
Baltic.
na
We are
Bałtyku.
on the
Natomiast
first
zajmujemy trzecie
position
miejsce
in
w Europie
Europe on the
na
Baltic as
Bałtyku,
regards
jeżeli chodzi
reloading
o
in the
łączne
ranking of
przeładunki w
European
rankingu
ports.
portów
This is the
europejskich. To jest około
15th or
15-16
16th position. It is
miejsce.
worth
Warto zwrócić uwagę
highlighting
na takie
the question of trains. Around
około 600
600
pociągów
trains
miesięcznie
leave
wyjeżdża
the DCT
z terminala
terminal
DCT
per month.
w kierunku zaplecza naszego
The
portu.
intermodal transport in
intermodalny w
2020
bieżącym
grew
2020
by
roku wyrósł
over
ponad
20%.
20%.
This
To też pokazuje,
shows the
jak
immense
ogromną
role
rolę w
of
tym
the port
systemie
in the
pełni
system.
port.
The funds that
Środki,
we
które pozyskaliśmy
received
w ramach
from
funduszy
CEF were spent mainly spent on the extension and modernization of the roads network in the outer port in Gdańsk. In the slide you can see the investments that have been made, mainly its access to the container terminal. In the black and white photo it's clearly visible that 2 years ago, for the train to leave the container terminal, which is the biggest terminal in the Baltic, traffic on the road had to be stopped, whereas today this container terminal is connected with two tracks. There are 2 lanes. Thanks to this, the cargoes leave the port much quicker. And as part of this investment, we delivered 10 kilometers of rail line and 5 kilometers of roads, a gigantic project changing the face of the port. We also had actions aiming to exceed regarding the crossing of the pipelines. This is a port importing oil to Poland and to the neighboring countries, and we could prepare solutions thanks to which the vessel stays in the port for a shorter time. Also, there is improvement in the port services. There is a large car park for lorries that has been built. 39.4 million euros, this is the cost of the investment. 62% was the EU contribution, and we completed the project successfully. This shows how much the Gdańsk port changed thanks to these funds. The inner part of the port. The second large project is the waterway and embankment. We can see the green vessel, the vessel used for installation of wind farms that was moored there. And under this modernization project, 5 kilometers of new embankments were delivered. This changes the ecological footprint of the vessels arriving, and also different cargoes are reloaded. We are going now in the direction of processed goods rather than coal. And you can see the shape of the embankment before. The shape determined the nature of the vessels that could arrive there, and this was changed, and now the device for turning the vessels has been delivered, turning vessels up to 250 meters in length. This is very important, the calculation for which, of the time for which the vessel stays in the port. So this is what the ship owner has to calculate before the vessel actually arrives in a port. The total amount of the investment, that's 132 million euros. We can compare investing in ports to investing in hospitals from the point of view of the community, because this improves the resilience of the community and delivers a new technology. Especially in the current situation, we can expect that the maritime business, sea business, will change. So navigation will change. A lot of transportation, because now when we look at this, and 40% of all sea transport in the world, they carry oil. They carry fossil fuels. And if we look at how world's navigation is going to change, this will also affect the production sites. Take the United Arab Emirates. There were some
ponieważ tam jest bardzo tania
devices
energia solarna, to tam się
delivered
dokonuje
there
właśnie tej produkcji i stamtąd dopiero
for
wysyła
the
się
goods
ten
coming
już
from
przetworzony towar dla niemieckiego
Guinea,
automotive.
and
Więc
then
zmienią
the
się
goods
bieguny
go to
generalnie,
Germany.
to będzie
But
oczywiście
in the
przebiegało stopniowo, ale w 2050-40 roku, 30 nawet już zaczyna się o tym bardzo poważnie rozmawiać, zmieni się trochę układ sił, jeżeli chodzi o
this will
o
change as regards navigation.
To jest też bardzo ciekawy przykład wspaniałej kooperacji i współpracy z PKP PLK, jeżeli chodzi o pracę, którą wykonuje PKP na naszą
So this
rzecz,
is
de facto
something
na
that
rzecz nas
actually
wszystkich jako
applies to all of us
jako
in
Polaków. Proszę
Poland.
Państwa, 12% wszystkich
12%
podróży
of all
kolejowych, towarowych
journeys
w Niemczech
in Germany
zaczyna się w
start
porcie
in
Hamburg.
the seaport in
Te
Hamburg.
inwestycje powodują również,
And
że
that
nasz
means
port
that
staje się
our port
dużo
becomes
lepiej skomunikowany z zapleczem,
better
możemy być portem dla
communicated
Czech,
with
dla Słowacji,
facilities. We
dla
can be the
Ukrainy.
port
Węgry już szukają swojej
for
drogi, oni już poszli
instance,
w
Czech
kierunku Trieste.
Republic
To
or
jest z punktu
Slovakia.
ekonomicznego
Hungary
dużo
went
bardziej
to look
wygodne,
for
ale
their
to są
port
właśnie
in
te inwestycje
Trieste,
ponad
but
1,5
we can
miliarda, które
still do that
zmieniają
for
oblicze
Czechia and Slovakia. This is
naszego
something
Nowe
that
perspektywy
changes
to
our
jest
port.
dokończenie
And this
ogromnego
is
wysiłku,
picture
który
to
został włożony
illustrate
właśnie w tym
the
okresie
efforts
tej
that
pierwszej
were done
perspektywy.
during the
Jest tutaj
first
obecna na sali pani
horizon.
Jolita
We have
Zielińkiewicz,
Jolita
która była właśnie
Zielonkiewicz with us.
motorem tego typu
She
działania w
was
porcie, która
behind
przygotowywała właśnie
preparation
ten
of the
pierwszy
first
CEF. Dzisiaj cieszymy
CEF,
się, pracuje
and today she's
przy projekcie
working with
CPK
the
i czerpiemy również z owoców
Central
pracy
Transport
Jolity.
Hub
Ale ten drugi
project.
etap to jest
So
dokończenie
this
tej
is
pracy,
to
która
complete
została
the works
wykonana w
that
tym
were
pierwszym
done
CEF-ie,
during the
czyli
first CEF. So
zamknięcie
we are closing
drugiej
the
strony
second
kanału.
part
To
of
są
the
cztery
channel.
zasadzie na
These
brzegach,
are
które
two
chcemy
works
zrealizować,
that we want to
zmieniając
do.
oblicze
The
naszego
total
portu.
value
Łączna
of the
wartość tych
project
projektów to
is $500 million zloty. Here we
To,
can
co
see in
tutaj
the left
widzimy w lewym
upper
górnym
left
rogu, to jest
corner.
dodatkowe
So
36
this is the
hektarów
new
Polski,
project
czyli
of the
nowy
new
projekt
DCT
nowego
terminal.
terminala DCT, który spowoduje,
So
że ta
the
pozycja
position of
Gdańska jako
Gdańsk
hubu
as the
kontenerowego na
container
Bałtyku jest
hub on
niezachwiana.
Baltic Sea
Natomiast na
is
dole
safe.
pokazujemy
And
centrum
then
logistyczne, które właśnie
below that,
funkcjonuje już
this
i
is
będzie
the
rozbudowane. Więc
logistical
bardzo Państwu dziękuję
center
za
that is
uwagę i dziękuję
already
wszystkim osobom,
functioning.
które
Thank you
były
very much
zaangażowane
everyone
w ten proces
who
w
were
ministerstwach i w
involved in
Komisji
this
Europejskiej.
project
Dziękuję
in
bardzo.
Poland and in the European Commission. Thank you so
Dziękujemy
much.
bardzo.
Well,
Pan
the
prezes
President has
wspomniał o
mentioned
600
600
pociągach w
trains
ciągu
within a month.
miesiąca. To jest,
So, to
jak
put it
w
simply,
pewnym
this is
uproszczeniu
almost
prawie jeden pociąg na
one
godzinę.
train every
Proszę państwa,
hour. That
to
shows you
pokazuje,
the scale
jaka jest
of
skala działalności,
activity.
ale to też,
But
proszę
that
państwa,
also shows
pokazuje,
you how
jak
important
istotny
is
jest
the
ten efekt,
effect
o
that
którym
was
również pan prezes
mentioned,
wspomniał, czyli
the
ten efekt
synergy
synergii
between
pomiędzy
the actions
działaniami
of
poszczególnych
individual
beneficjentów, to, co realizuje
beneficiaries.
PKP
So what
spina się z tym,
PKP
co realizuje
is doing
port
is
i
consistent
przekłada
with
się
what the
to w
port
ogóle
is
na
doing, and that translates
funkcjonowanie całego
into
systemu
the
transportowego.
functioning of the whole system.
Dziękujemy jeszcze
Once
raz
again,
bardzo
thank you so
serdecznie,
much,
a
and
my
we are
przechodzimy do
moving on to the
kolejnej
next
prezentacji. Na scenę
presentation.
zapraszam
I'd
pana
like to
Mikołaja Wilda,
ask
prezesa Zarządu
Mikołaj
Centralnego
Wild, the
Portu
president of the
Komunikacyjnego.
Central Transport Hub, to take the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, the Central Transport Hub is the youngest investor here. We are very proud to be joining the group of investors who are known as reliable partners to the European Commission, and in particular, we should remember about the efforts and achievements of the General Directorate of National Roads and Motorways. We can be proud of them. I'd like to emphasize that the Central Transport Hub is also a disturber in the current transport system. Our role is to change the role of the public system as regards the aviation sector and rail sector, and to a small extent we will be cooperated with the General Directorate in ensuring that Poland has an optimum road sector as well. What are the main objectives that we have? Well, what can be supported by the Connecting Europe facility? Well, these are the rail connections.
pomimo wielkiego
Well,
wpływu
although the
drogownictwa na
road
rozwój naszej
transport
mobilności,
affected the
kolej
development
ma
of
teraz
our
najlepszy
mobility, well,
czas
now
w swojej
it is
historii,
the
jeśli
time
chodzi o
of the
rozwój, jako
rail,
najbardziej ekologiczny
because this is the most
i najbardziej
eco-friendly
otwarty sposób
mean
komunikowania
of
się. I
transportation
dlatego
with the best
przeważająca większość nakładów
connecting
realizowanych w ramach programu
capacities.
Centralnego Portu
That's why
Komunikacyjnego
so much money
będzie
will
skierowana
be
właśnie na kolej.
spent on rail.
Jak
So
dotąd,
far, competing
konkurując z
with the
konkurując z
project
projektami z
since
całej Europy
from
w ramach
around
konkursu CEF
Europe,
udało nam się
we were
uzyskać
able to obtain
dofinansowanie
financing for two
dwóch
projects.
projektów.
Well, the first
Pierwszy
project
to
is
realizacja prac
consists of
studialnych
the
na
study works
odcinku
on the
Warszawa-Poznań.
section Warszawa-Poznań.
Tutaj
Well,
dofinansowanie
the
sięgnęło 50 milionów
co-financing
złotych.
was nearly
Druga-
50 million zloty,
drugie
and another
dofinansowanie
financing
to
under the
również wynikające z
competition
konkursu, w
that
którym udało się
we effectively competed
skutecznie
with
konkurować
projects,
z projektami
other
z całej
European
Europy.
projects, is the
To dofinansowanie
financing
do
of
tunelu w
the
Łodzi,
tunnel
do
in
jego
Łódź.
projektowania,
This is a
nowego
new
tunelu w
tunnel
Łodzi
that is now designed,
wysokości
and that
59
is around
milionów
59 million
złotych.
zloty. So
Tyle
this is
środków
how much
unijnych
money,
zostanie
European
przekierowane
money,
na
will be sent
prace
to the
projektowe.
design works, to complete the design works.
Dość powiedzieć,
We
tutaj,
must say that in
poza
addition to the fact that
faktem,
we
że
were
konkurowaliśmy
competing
z podmiotami
with
z całej Europy,
entities from
też
around
udało
Europe,
się uzyskać
we were
wyjątkowe,
able
nawet jak na skalę
to
polską,
achieve
wyniki, jeśli
the
chodzi o
results that are
ocenę tych
unique,
projektów, co znaczy,
even
że
for
program CPK
Poland.
wpisuje się
So
w znakomity sposób
that
w
means
cele
that they
europejskie.
are a great part of the European general goals. What is
W Łodzi jest to
this
drugi
tunnel
tunel,
in
który
Łódź
jest
about?
realizowany
This is the
w
second
tym
tunnel
mieście.
in this city. The
Pierwszy
first
tunel
one
przeznaczony
will be
dla
dedicated to the
ruchu bardziej
agglomeration
aglomeracyjnego.
traffic.
Jest to
This tunnel
tunel
is
realizowany
being
przez już
completed
obecnie
by the
przez
Polish
polskie linie
Railway.
kolejowe.
Our
Nasz
tunnel
tunel
will be
to
part
element
of
trasy,
the
która
route
połączy
that will
Warszawę,
connect
Łódź,
Warszawa, Łódź,
Wrocław,
Wrocław and
czyli
Poznań.
w
This
ramach
will
tak
be
zwanego
a
Y od
Y
od
route because of the
kształtu
shape
tego-
of this
kształtu tego
connection,
połączenia.
and this
Tunel
tunnel
przeznaczony
will
do
be
ruchu
for
dla kolei dużych
high-speed
prędkości.
rails.
Dodajmy, że dzięki realizacji tej
And with
inwestycji
the help of this
dworzec Łódź
investment,
Fabryczna
the rail
wreszcie
station Łódź
dopełni
Fabryczna
swojej
will
misji, ponieważ
play
dworzec Łódź Fabryczna został
the proper
zbudowany w jego obecnym
role
kształcie jako
because
dworzec
it
dla
was
kolei dużych
built
prędkości. To się nie
as
stało w
a
wyniku
rail
błędnej decyzji,
station for
która
high-speed
została podjęta
trains
w okolicach
because
2012
well
roku o
that didn't
wstrzymaniu prac
happen
nad kolejami dużych
initially
prędkości.
because of the
Teraz
decisions
w
that
wyniku
were
programu
made
CPK ten
before, but this
projekt
project
znowu zaczyna
again
znowu
will be
znowu zaczyna być realizowany.
completed.
To
At the
jest
same
jednocześnie
time,
najbardziej
this is the
zaawansowany
most
z projektów,
advanced project
Centralnego
by the
Portu
Central
Komunikacyjnego, gdzie
Transport
jesteśmy na
Hub,
etapie prac
where
projektowych
we are
i studialnych.
focusing already on the work
Tunel ma około 4 km.
on the design
Rozpoczęcie robót
works.
budowlanych
Well, the
przewidziane
tunnel
jest w 2023
should
roku.
be
Koniec
completed.
budowy
Well,
przewidziany jest
the
na
works should start in
rok
2023 and should be completed in 2027.
Kolejny
competition
konkurs, w którym
during which
naszej spółce udało się
our company
uzyskać
received
dofinansowanie w
financing.
100%
100%
wnioskowanych
of
kwot.
financing we
To,
applied for are
to
the
prace studialne
study
na
works
linii,
on
kolei dużych
high
prędkości
speed
Warszawa-Poznań.
rail connection
Tutaj,
Warszawa-Poznań.
Tak jak powiedziałem
We are
wcześniej,
talking
mówimy o
about the
elementach trasy
elements
łączącej
of
Warszawę
the
i
route
Łódź
that connects
z Wrocławiem i
Warsaw
Poznaniem.
with Łódź and Wrocław and Poznań.
Jest to połączenie,
Well, this
które
connection will
w
completely
całkowicie nowy sposób
this will
łączy
be a completely
w
new
ramach jednego systemu kolejowego koleje dużych
connection
prędkości,
of
koleje
that will connect
regionalne
the
i
regional
koleje,
rail and
także koleje
agglomeration
aglomeracyjne.
railway.
Bardzo dziękuję.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much,
Dziękujemy bardzo, panie
President. We
prezesie.
are very happy
Bardzo
that
nas
the
cieszy
new
to, że
beneficiary,
nowy
new
beneficjent,
player on
nowy
the
gracz na
market,
rynku, jeżeli
on
można
the
tak
funds
powiedzieć,
market,
funduszy,
is so
tak sprawnie
efficient
pozyskuje dofinansowanie w
in
procedurach
obtaining
konkursowych,
financing
skutecznie
in
konkurując
competitions
z
effectively and
beneficjentami z różnych
successfully,
części Europy.
competing with
Dziękujemy,
parties
a
from
my
Europe.
łączymy się
Now
teraz
we are
zdalnie z panem
connecting
Józefem
with Józef
Węgreckim,
Węgrecki from
wiceprezesem
Denmark.
zarządu
He's
Polskiego
the
Koncernu
vice president
Naftowego
of the
Orlen
management
S.A.
board of Polski Koncern
Dzień
Naftowy
dobry, panie
Orlen
prezesie, czy się
Dzień dobry
słyszymy?
państwu.
Can you hear us?
Tak, ja
Yes, I
słyszę
can hear you
doskonale.
I my pana
perfectly
słyszymy
well.
doskonale, zatem
So
oddajemy
I am
prezentację w pana ręce.
over to you then.
Więc proszę państwa,
Well, ladies
jeżeli
and
chodzi o
gentlemen, as
projekty, o
regards the
których tu była
projects
mowa,
that were mentioned
może
here, we
nie
may
do końca
not
jesteśmy
really
w tych projektach
be in the infrastructural projects,
My chcemy
involved in the
zapewnić
infrastructural
to, co zawsze
projects.
zapewniamy,
We
wszystko, co jest
ensure
potrzebne do transportu.
everything, we guarantee
Więc,
everything that is necessary
chcemy
to complete transport.
nadążamy
We
za
want to
Europą
catch up with
w kierunku
Europe. We want
produkcji
to follow
wodoru
Europe
i
in
wykorzystywania go
using
w tym
hydrogen for
transporcie.
transport.
Jest to
Well, of course, this is the
oczywiście
hydrogen
wodór
that is used
wykorzystywany
for
w kilku
several
aspektach, czyli
purposes.
jest to
So,
transport na pewno,
food transport,
jest to
this
wodór
is also a
procesowy,
process
którego o którym się mniej
hydrogen that
mówi,
is
a
not
który jest
as
tutaj
popular,
jakby
but it is
zasadniczym
a
elementem,
crucial
ponieważ
element
na
here
przykład my na
because in
instalacji w
Płock
Płocku
we
na godzinę
produce
produkujemy
17
17
tons
ton
of
wodoru
hydrogen
z
per
gazu,
hour out of
emitując
gas
określone
by emitting
tony
tons
tego
of
wodoru,
CO2 to
CO2 do
atmosphere,
atmosfery,
paying this kind
ponosząc
of
tego typu
cost.
koszty. Więc
So that would be the
to by było
second
drugie.
thing,
I
and the
trzecia
third
sprawa to jest
is
to element
the
dekarbonizacji.
decarbonization element,
Ponieważ
because if we
jeżeli
have
będziemy
green
mieć zielony
hydrogen,
wodór,
we
możemy
can
produkować
produce
na
synthetic
przykład paliwa
fuels.
syntetyczne,
We will be able to
metanizację
metallize
CO2,
CO2.
czyli po prostu jakby byłby to
So that would mean
zamknięcie
that
obiegu
the closed
zamkniętego,
circuit is
czyli
further
wyłapujemy
closed.
CO2 z
So we
powietrza,
add
dokładamy
green
zielony wodór i w
hydrogen
ten
and
sposób
we
możemy
are able
produkować
to produce
paliwa
synthetic
syntetyczne, które są
fuels,
w tej
which
chwili na
are
topie.
the
Jak
most
wiemy,
popular
jest
right now, and
największe
the financing
dofinansowanie do tego
is the
typu rzeczy
biggest
w
in
Europie.
Europe. So
Wodór,
hydrogen
na drugim
and
miejscu
followed
paliwa
by
syntetyczne.
synthetic fuels. And of course we
Oczywiście produkujemy również
produce
wodór
or we
czy zamierzamy produkować
aim to produce
z odpadów.
hydrogen out of waste. So
Przetwarzanie
thermal
termiczne
processing
odpadów
of
to nie jest
waste.
spalarnia.
This is
My
not
te odpady
a
przetwarzamy w
burner
kierunku
or combustion
syngazu,
plant.
wytwarzamy wodór i z powrotem
We
możemy
can
to
actually
kierować do
use that, reuse it
procesów
for production
produkcyjnych na rafinerii.
processes in
Więc jest
our
to typowy
refinery. This
obieg
is
zamknięty.
a
Jeżeli chodzi o
simple
wodór
closed
i o
circuit.
pozyskiwanie środków,
We also have a project called Hydrogen Ike. Over 3 billion zloty worth, so it may not be comparable to the projects done by PKP or Seaport, but they are infrastructural projects, and we want to introduce hydrogen into transport, not just in Poland, but in European countries across Europe. That was the idea behind this project, and this was our approach. This is worth over 3 billion zloty. Yesterday we've received some additional questions, but it seems that there are no surprises there. Under this project, we plan to produce around 50,000 tons of hydrogen yearly out of electrolyzers. So this is 250 megawatt of power of electrolyzers that would ensure us this amount of hydrogen. It also involves 15,000 tons of hydrogen of thermal reprocessing of waste. Well, the works are quite advanced in Płock, and then we will go to Ostrołęka. And if
Jeżeli
the first
poukładają
projects
się nam te pierwsze
work
projekty,
well, then
chcemy
we
tutaj
want to
wejść
enter the
szeroko na rynek.
market
Tym
very
bardziej, że
extensively. We
widać, że
can
na tym
see that
rynku
there
są
are
możliwości
financial
finansowe.
possibilities on the
Jeżeli dostaniemy
market.
te środki, jeżeli, kiedy
If and
dostaniemy te
when
środki,
we receive
to
the money,
uważam,
well,
że wygra
the
ten,
party
kto te
that
projekty
has
będzie
the
posiadał.
projects will win,
Ponieważ
because it
nie
is
da się tego
impossible to
zrobić
be
z dnia na
done
dzień.
like
Te projekty muszą być
within
przygotowane
one day.
i w tym
First,
kierunku
you have to prepare the projects, and then you can
Uzyskaliśmy
continue. And
oczywiście,
of course, we've received
już dotacje
subsidies
do
for our
budowanych
hydrogen
stacji wodoporowych.
stations that
Jeszcze
are
nie
not
budowanych, ale już
constructed
wyszły
yet,
na
but
rynek
the
zapytania. Jest
questions
to
has
Poznań,
been
jest to
sent
Dolnośląska,
out to the market. We are talking to
strefa
Śląska
ekonomiczna
Economic
w
Zone
Katowicach, jest
in
to
Katowice,
Włocławek, jest
Włocławek,
obwodorowy.
and so on.
I my
And
ten
this
wodór
hydrogen
do
for our automotive industry
automotive
will be
doczyszczamy
clarified by
istniejący
us. So
już
we
wodór, czyli my
produce the
produkujemy ten
hydrogen
wodór z
from
elektrolizerów, jest on
electrolyzers, and
niewłaściwej
the
czystości
clarity is
we Włocławku,
not
doczyszczamy
proper. So we
i w
further
pierwszym
clarify
momencie
this
on pójdzie
hydrogen,
tam, gdzie
purify it,
samorządy będą mieć
and then
autobus.
we can sell
My nie
it.
mamy problemu z
So
wodorem. Tylko
there's no
ten wodór
problem
pracy
with the
automotive
hydrogen,
nie
but
jest
the
tani.
automotive
Jeżeli chcemy
hydrogen
go
is not cheap. And
produkować i
if we want to
sprzedawać, to
sell it,
musimy
we have
mieć
to,
rynek.
we must
I ten
have a
rynek nam po
market,
prostu
and
w
the
jakiś
market
sposób
affects
wpływa na
us
to.
in a
Oczywiście
way.
staramy
And
się
of
ten
course,
rynek również
we try to
w jakiś
mobilize
sposób
the
mobilizować,
market. We try to
pozyskać.
win parties
Pierwsze
on the market. Well, the
autobusy
first
wodorowe mają być w
hydrogen
Krakowie,
buses
gdzie
should
dostaliśmy dosyć
run
późno
around
taki
Kraków.
impuls. Udało
We
nam się
received this
zorganizować
impulse
stację
very late,
tankowania
so we were
wodoru
able
mobilną
to
i w przyszłym roku powinno to
to
ruszyć.
start
Rozmawiamy
the
również
tanking station, the
portem
fueling
Gdyni tym
station
razem.
in Kraków.
Odnośnie
So we are also talking about the
dekarbonizacji, czyli
decarbonization,
transportu
so the
wodorowego w Unii.
hydrogen
Oczywiście
transport
to są
in the
pierwsze
EU. So
rozmowy,
these are
ale
the
wiąże się to
preliminary
również z
talks,
pewnego
but
rodzaju
it is connected with
inwestycjami,
investments and
przekierowaniem
redirecting the
zarówno
transport,
transportu
so land transport,
naziemnego, szyn, wózki
such
akumulatorowe,
as
autobusy,
buses, for
do
instance,
transportu morskiego,
to
czyli
sea
również
transport, such
Oczywiście do
as
tego muszą być
vessels.
znaczy
So
inaczej, takie porty
such
już
ports
istnieją, więc to nie
do
jest też nic
exist
nowego.
already. So this is nothing new.
Ja myślę tutaj gdzieś, no Göteborg jest jakoby jeszcze nie, ale już jest w projekcie.
But I believe
Natomiast są
Singapore
bazy, chyba
has
Singapur
one
bodajże jest już,
hydrogen
na
powered
wodór.
one. So we
Więc
want to
spróbujemy
follow
iść
this
tym kierunkiem. My
direction.
jako
As
Orlen
Orlen,
jesteśmy
we are
zainteresowani
interested
oczywiście
in
głównie
selling
sprzedażą wodoru, ale
hydrogen,
żeby
but
ten
in
wodór
order to
sprzedawać,
be
no
able
to
to sell
musimy stworzyć
hydrogen, we need to
określoną infrastrukturę.
have infrastructure. So
Co
what
jeszcze? Jeżeli
else?
chodzi o transport
When I talk about the
samochodowy,
car
ja uważam, że w
vehicle
pierwszym momencie ten
transport,
transport
so I
miejski,
think
ciężki
that
i nie
the
tylko,
heavy
będzie na wodorze.
urban transport
Ponieważ nie ma
will
rozbudowanej
use
sieci
hydrogen
elektrycznej,
because
tak
there
żeby
is
można
not
było
enough
podłączyć
electric
tysiące ładowarek elektrycznych. Więc musimy,
network, fueling network
samochód
to
wodorowy
connect the
to jest
buses.
sobie
But
samochód
if
elektryczny
someone
z
buys
ładowarką.
a car, electric
Więc
car,
w
they
sumie
can
jest to
buy it
proste, jest
with
kwestia
the
zarządzania
charger.
energią. Musi być
So
ku temu
it's easy,
rynek.
but we need a market for
Poza
that.
tym podchodzimy do
But on the other hand, our
transportu
approach
szynowego.
to
Od Persji
the rail
kupujemy pierwszą
transport,
lokomotywę
next
w
year we
przyszłym
will
roku,
buy the
która
first
będzie
locomotive
lokomotywą
from
manewrową tutaj u nas
Pesta.
w Płocku. Natomiast jest, nie będę tutaj operował ilościami,
will
bo Państwa
not
wprowadzić w błąd, ale jest to
give you
zagospodarowania
detailed
duża
numbers,
ilość
but a huge part of
kolei,
rail
gdzie
can
chodzą
be
na ropę.
managed.
I to wszystko można
And we can
spokojnie
actually reprocess
przetworzyć na wodę.
reprocess it and use produce hydrogen. Thank you very much, President.
Będziemy już
We
prosili o
need
myśli
to
końcowe tego
finish
wystąpienia, bo
your
wszystkich
speech.
nas obowiązuje niestety dyscyplina czasowa, bo
Unfortunately, we
chcieliśmy z
need more
Państwem
time
jeszcze
to
porozmawiać w
have a
panelu
discussion in the panel. So thank you very much.
Dziękuję.
Thank you very
Dziękuję
much,
bardzo
ladies
serdecznie.
and gentlemen.
bardzo. Proszę
Last
Państwa, nie
week
dalej
on
jak w zeszłym
Thursday and
tygodniu, w
Friday
czwartek i w
during the
piątek podczas
conference
konferencji
organized by the
organizowanej przez
Center
Centrum
for
Unijnych
EU
Projektów
Transport
Transportowych
Projects,
rozmawialiśmy o
we
tym, że wodór
talked
jest
about the
przyszłością
future of
transportu.
transport, which
Widać,
is
że nie tylko
hydrogen. So
rozmawiamy o
we are
tym,
not
ale
just
również
talking about it,
działamy
but
w
we
tym
are
kierunku i
acting
to również bardzo
upon
cieszy.
it. And now the final presentation under this part of our meeting. We are joining Sylwia Pawlak, Director in Lotos Group. Good afternoon.
Dzień dobry. Czy się słyszymy i
Yes,
widzimy?
I can hear you perfectly well. Definitely, yes.
Zdecydowanie tak, dlatego
Then
bardzo
let's
prosimy o
go ahead.
prezentację.
Thank you very much. I hope you can see my presentation. So, in Lotos Group, so Lotos Group, and not just Lotos Group, benefited from CEF and received funding for 3 projects, and those projects involved Pure H2, Project LEM Blue Trail, and the feasibility study of the loading terminal, LNG terminal. And Pure H2 project is completed together with Lotos Paliwa. So we plan to construct and launch infrastructure to produce and sell hydrogen, quite pure hydrogen that meets the standards for hydrogen as fuel, but also for cars and buses. And under this project, we also plan to construct HPU infrastructure in the refinery in Gdańsk. We are talking about 160 kilograms of hydrogen per hour, and the purified hydrogen will be sent to the special designed point. There we will have the battery cars that will deliver the hydrogen to the fueling stations. 2 will be built, one in Gdańsk and one in Warszawa.
Under 2 installations, we will be building the stations into standards 350 bar and 700 bar for cars and for buses. And the project is now at the stage of design works. Contracts have been signed with the providers of the key elements of the installation, and the project is to be completed in 2040, and we'll all be able to use the infrastructure. Another completed project is the alia project, the Blue Trail, implemented by Lotos Paliwa. Under this project, financing was obtained of over 400,000 euros. The project budget was 990,000 euros. The project was about implementing an investment in Poland to enable electric vehicle transport between Warsaw and Gdańsk, Gdynia and Sopot. Under this project, 12 charging points for electric vehicles were built. They were delivered in October 2018, and since that time can be used by the general public. This project, each of the stations was supposed to have 2 charging points and a charger of 150 kilowatt that will cover the full e-mobility market. Under the project, Lotos Paliwa recorded over 17,000 of charging operations. So we can see that the project is working and it's possible to travel Warsaw and Gdańsk without any problem. Under the project, also study works were conducted marketing works. And we are planning to extend this project in the future to include further projects financed from CEF. Another project is the reloading terminal, small scale in Gdańsk. It was a study project delivered by a consortium of Lotos and Gas System. The co-financing in this project is over €1 million, completed in May 2020. The feasibility study was completed in May 2020, and the next step will be the investment decision. Maybe this will be the first facility of this type in Poland that will enable the use of LNG as a fuel in both land and sea transport, thus strengthening the position of the company as alternative fuels leaders. It will be a logistics and reloading base for LNG. The target value, the target capacity of the terminal will be over 3,000 cubic meters of LNG. But we are not just thinking about the projects that I have presented. Under the first project, we are planning not just to use the hydrogen from our installation, but soon also to replace the grey hydrogen with hydrogen from other projects, for instance, the hydrogen project in Gdynia. Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation, and now we are passing on to the discussion with our panelists, and I hand over to Paweł Engel, who will chair this panel. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, to comment on the presentation of Madam Director Pawlak, there was another important motive connected with the future of transport, I mean electrification. This is a very positive signal that the Polish transport signal is addressing these challenges, and that the Polish transport sector is actively preparing to how transport of people and cargoes can look in 10 or 15 years. In the presentations that we have just seen, there was a very big scope of projects, from documentation projects to smaller scale projects connected with innovative solutions to infrastructure projects or large-scale digitization projects. With us, we have representatives of beneficiaries who are just embarking on the adventure with European funds, and with the CEF fund, we have a very experienced beneficiaries as well. So I'd like to start our discussion by asking about your most important experience from this perspective, from these projects that you implemented under CEF, that you have implemented under CEF. Let me just add that we need to limit our comments in time a little bit, because we have some time limitations here. So please just make comments, just 1 minute or 2 minute comments. But since I'm asking about one experience, I believe this challenge is not one that cannot be met. I'd like to ask the question first to Mikołaj Wil, the youngest beneficiary, representative of the youngest beneficiary of CEF. It seems that my experience will be confirmed by those who represent more experienced investors. First of all, well, people. This is the key word. Without a excellent experts, we can forget about competing with other European entities, competing for funds under Connecting Europe facility. And this is thanks to the extensive works of our experts that the success was possible. Because certainly we have great projects, but even if the projects weren't so excellent, it's better to have medium projects with excellent experts than excellent projects and mediocre experts. Another approach, like typical infrastructure projects and digitization. I'd like to ask the question to Tomasz Żuchowski.
Tak, myślę, że to można dodać tutaj, co powiedział
So
prezes Wild, to rzeczywiście kluczowy
I agree with Mr. Wild that these are people that are important as well as precision. And we have to know how we want to do this when we are submitting an application. We need to remember that this application should generate tangible results, and we need to win the battle for the funds. And we have to know and believe that it makes sense. Thank you, Director. Now I'd like to ask our speakers, the speakers we have online. Madam Director Sylwia Pawlak mentioned many projects, maybe smaller scale projects from LOTOS. What is your experience, or what are your experiences? Probably somewhat different because of the nature of your work and the nature of your company. What is your most significant experience? I think that our projects were both pioneer projects and innovative projects, because back then and now they were and they are implemented on a market that wasn't fully explored, and very good cooperation with the Ministry of Funds and Regional Policy, with CUPT, with CINEA, and the people have already been mentioned. Without those elements, the projects would not be possible to implement. So, based on our experience, that is how it looks. That is what helped us, and that what is helping us to deliver the projects. Thank you, Madam Director. Let us stay at the seaside. Let us stay at the seaside. Sławomir Michalewski, Chairman Michalewski, what about your experience as a beneficiary? Like the previous speakers said, the quality of the team that we are cooperating with on delivery of the projects, and very good cooperation with the institutions, both in Poland and in Brussels. And with contractors. We had a difficult case in one project when delivering one project, because Port Gdańsk is a port with 1,000 years of history. It was just 26 million zloty, but we came across some objects from the old times, wooden objects, wooden boxes filled with stones, and no devices could cut through those. We had to prepare another technology. These boxes with stones were used as reinforcements. So we had to prepare a new technology, and thanks to excellent cooperation with the contractors, with our employees who responded very well. That's thanks to that we were able to implement the project. Of course, we exceeded the budget because there was no other way, but this was achieved. So one needs to be prepared for what can happen and prepare emergency scenarios.
Pozostaje w takim razie również głęboki podziw dla technologii
well, we should
wdrożonych
admire
przez
the
naszych przodków.
technologies
W
implemented
inwestycjach
by
portowych w
our
Gdańsku,
predecessors
tak
then,
kilkaset lat
like
temu.
hundreds of years
Obecnie
ago.
prowadzimy bardzo dobrą,
Now
szczegółową
we
digitalizację
are
tych tras, prowadzimy, że tak za kilka sekund ktoś to
digitalizing
znajdzie, może będzie w
this.
stanie.
So
Miejmy nadzieję, że
the
nasze
words that we are
inwestycje okażą się
implementing, so if someone
równie
finds
trwałe.
them in the
Proszę
future, they
Państwa,
will be able
to
to
samo pytanie chciałem
examine
skierować
them. The same
do pana
question to
prezesa Józefa
Chairman
Węgierskiego.
Józef
Bardzo proszę, panie prezesie.
Węgierski.
No, ja może
I will
troszeczkę z
approach
innej
it
strony
from a
chciałem
different
do tego podejść.
perspective.
Jest to
Hydrogen,
jakby wodór,
synthetic fuels,
paliwa
decarbonization,
syntetyczne,
so
dekarbonizacja, czyli zatłaczanie
pumping
CO2
CO2
do złóż. Jest to
in
jakby nowy
this is a new
kierunek. Więc
direction,
ja
and I
odczuwam tutaj
feel
zdecydowane braki
that
w
regulations
zakresie
are
regulacji.
missing.
Idzie
This is
to,
changing,
ale idzie za
progressing,
wolno,
but it is
pomimo, że
changing
starają
too
się
slowly, even
ministerstwa,
though
mamy bardzo dobrą
the
współpracę.
cooperation with the ministries is
Natomiast
good, but
jest to za
this
wolno, świat
process
ucieka. Ta
of
maszyna ruszyła.
legislative
Więc
process is too
żeby
slow, because
po prostu być w tej
to
czołówce
stay at
musimy
the
w nią
lead,
wskoczyć,
we have to speed up.
Dziękuję bardzo, panie prezesie.
And last but not least,
Last but not
Chairman
least, pan prezes
Radosław Celiński from PKP PLK. Ladies and gentlemen, Polish Rails has the biggest beneficiaries with 28 projects co-financed from CEF, has biggest experience, and it is most difficult to choose one element that would be representative. But if I am to choose, I'd say that it's flexibility. It's flexibility and the possibility of ongoing online cooperation, of talks with the representatives at home and in Brussels, in the Commission. This had a big impact and contributed to the successful project delivery in the conditions of the COVID pandemic. Even if some supply chains were missing, information could be exchanged, and the deadlines were extended not to lose the funds and to maintain or achieve the functionality that was planned.
Dziękuję bardzo, panie prezesie.
If we wanted to sum up the first part of our talk, some key words kept recurring. First of all, the people, the projects, cooperation and flexibility, but also, and I want to stress this, that sometimes the world is speeding ahead, and as regards the regulations, fast actions are needed, quick response to how the reality is changing. The reality will also be shaping it when we start to deliver new projects, when we enter the new financing period. This already started. The first competition was opened under CEF 2. What are the plans? What are the most significant plans of our beneficiaries, of our guests in the coming period and in CEF 2? Now, let's start with the rails. Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, the Polish rails, that's of course tracks and the lines, and in the new period 21-27 we would like to continue the projects on the core TEN-T network. These are mainly located in Silesia, in the Poznań railway node, and also Rail Baltica. These are massive long-term projects, and as the beneficiary we will want to focus on that too. I make this short. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. We wish you such fast project delivery also in the field. Chairman Nikolai Wild, you as the youngest beneficiary, are you going to pass on to financing works as well? Yes, of course. Yes, of course. When thinking about CEF in the new period, we are talking about co-financing of the works connected with the Łódź tunnel works and preparation of the investment on the rail connection connecting Warsaw and Łódź, and the central transport hub node and connecting Łódź and Wrocław. These investments, their total investment is 4.5 billion zloty, so quite a significant amount, and of course we will be applying for so that the investments that fit the European transport receive CEF funds. What are the plans of PKN Orlen? Over to Chairman Józef Węgrecki. I think I could mention the IPSEI project that was submitted for the European program. This is of key importance, economic importance in Europe. About the future, the basic thing is green hydrogen. Green hydrogen, about which is not discussed much, because all the hydrogen that we have, the huge amounts in Poland, is the grey hydrogen that doesn't bring anything financially. And the green hydrogen regarding offshore and renewable energy sources, this is the future. That's why we are trying to obtain the hydrogen green, maybe not green, but without the carbon footprint, hydrogen without the carbon footprint. We are trying to obtain it from other sources. I can't disclose everything because there are certain restrictions, certain limitations, but before we have green hydrogen, we can't talk about synthetic fuels. And the automotive can be done from the grey. If we have like 100 hydrogen stations, not just in Poland, but also in Slovakia, in Czechia, they are also interesting for us.
Panie prezesie, dziękuję bardzo panie prezesie. Mam nadzieję, że PKN Orlen będzie mógł nas pozytywnie zaskoczyć swoimi planami w tym zakresie. Proszę państwa, przenieśmy się nad morze. Pan prezes Sławomir Michalewski. Jakie są państwa plany?
Well, our plans have been determined by the first objective. So we want to complete the water route. So we want to do 3 kilometers of work in order to close the inner port. So we need to complete the investment in this area. But in this project, we will focus on the eco-friendly solutions, because you have to imagine that a big passenger vessel that is in the port, and during that time all the entertainment facilities are on, for instance jacuzzis, and they emit as much CO2 as 20,000 buses. So right now the International Sea Organization wants to focus more on the solutions that promote eco-friendly ports, and we are this kind of port, but we want to be even more eco-friendly port. So we will promote onshore power supply. So they come to the port, the vessel comes to the port and uses the power provided by the port. Well, that will force us to change the construction of the power network, but also change our transformers. So we want to be more
bardziej portem ekologicznym i w tych rozwiązaniach chcemy właśnie nowych stosować te OPS-y, ale poza tym musimy też patrzeć szerzej, mianowicie w 2027 roku z morza popłynie 6 gigawatów energii elektrycznej zielonej. Teraz pytanie, czy rzeczywiście południe Polski ma być centrum przemysłowym Polski, czy rzeczywiście to powinno wymusić takie działania, jakie są w tej chwili widoczne w Holandii, w Niemczech, że rzeczywiście ten przemysł zaczyna się przesuwać na północ, ponieważ tam będzie zielona energia. Wkrótce, zgodnie z planami tego systemu, ma powstać też nowowe Zatoki Gdańskie, terminal regazyfikacyjny gazu i znowu będzie gaz. Uznajemy jeszcze przez wiele lat, że będzie źródłem energii zielonej. W 2020 roku na świecie 90% powstałych nowych źródeł energii to są źródła energii ekologicznej, czyli tej zielonej energii. Więc to jest też pewnego rodzaju rewolucja przemysłowa, która idzie
Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you very much. And now I'd
Teraz
like
chciałem prosić o
to hear
wypowiedź
from
panią
Director Sylwia Pawlak from
z
Lotos.
Zapraszam panią dyrektor.
Over to you. Thank you very
Dziękuję
much.
bardzo.
And well, we
my nie
cannot
wyobrażamy sobie
imagine our
dalszych
future
naszych
projects
projektów
without
bez
CEF.
CEF-u.
Well,
Jak najbardziej
definitely they will be connected with the alternative fuels. Well, difficult projects just as before, but we are very happy and wait for this time. So 2027, this is a long horizon of this program, but this helps us to create our very ambitious programs and projects. Right now, internally, we are taking decisions about several projects that we would like to be financed by CEF. Thank you very much, Director. And now I would like to ask Director Tomasz Żuchowski to speak. You have mentioned in your presentation about your plans Via Carpathia, S19 road and the continuation of traffic management activities. Let me modify my question. How would you evaluate your readiness for implementation of those projects in terms of applications for money for those projects? Yes, let me outline the future. Well, as you have said, as regards the projects, well, CEF, 28 kilometers of S19 road. So this is something that we approach with Slovakians. So we've just signed letter of intent with Slovakia so that Via Carpathia is a certain connection between Baltic states and Adriatic Sea. So this is one thing, but we still want to manage the traffic, but we are ready. If we were not ready, then we would not pretend here. Well, we want to use the expertise of our team. We are flexible and successful in new projects, so we can see that they bring added value. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, summarizing that very shortly, we have expertise, so we have teams, we have people, we know how to act, we know what we want to achieve, and that gives us a big chance that we will be successful. These are very important elements of that. Well, indeed, the Polish transport, if you remember that in 2004, 2008, it was completely different, and it is completely different right now, but in a few years it may be even more different, more modern, more green, and more adapted to the changing global situation. Thank you very much, and our guests were Director Sylwia Pawlak from Lotos Group. We also had online Józef Węgrowski, member of the board in PKN Orlen, and here in the room we had Radosław Celiński, member of the board of PKP Polish Railway, Tomasz Żuchowski, the general director of National Roads and Motorways, Mikołaj Wild, the president of the board of Central
CPK
Transport Hub,
i
and Sławomir Michalewski, member
Sławomir
of the board
Michalewski,
of the
członek
Seaport
zarządu
in
Morskiego
Gdańsk.
Portu Gdańsk
And I'd
S.A.
like to
Ja również
thank you
Państwu
as well.
dziękuję.
Thank you very
Bardzo
much.
serdecznie dziękujemy.
And this panel was
A panel
hosted by
poprowadził dla nas pan
Paweł
Paweł Engel,
Engel,
przewodniczący
the
Transportowego
head of the
Badawczego.
Transport
Bardzo serdecznie panu
Observatory.
dziękuję. Dziękuję. Dziękuję.
Ladies and gentlemen, and we are
Szanowni
moving
Państwo,
to
my już
the
przechodzimy do
next
kolejnej myśli,
thought
tak jak
that we have. As we've promised, we
mówiliśmy
talked
o
about the main
głównych
objectives
założeniach
of the
tego
project
projektu,
that
który
is
już się
being finalized.
finalizuje.
We talked about the
Mówiliśmy o
beneficiaries
perspektywie beneficjentów. Teraz
perspective. Now
idziemy
we
krok
are
dalej.
moving
Będziemy teraz
forward. We
rozmawiać
will be
o
talking
wyzwaniach i
about the
możliwościach,
challenges
jakie
and
rysuje przed nami
possibilities of the
kolejna
new perspective.
perspektywa.
On
W
the
dniu
16th
16
of
września
September this
bieżącego
year,
roku Komisja
the
Europejska
European
uruchomiła
Commission launched the first
pierwszy
call for
nabór w ramach
proposals
instrumentu
under the
Łącząc Europę
Connecting
w
Europe
nowej
facility in
perspektywie, a
New
polskie spółki
Horizon.
planują
And Polish
aktywny
companies
udział w tym
plan to
konkursie.
actively
Wobec
participate
tego
in this
my
competition.
teraz
Therefore,
właśnie
we
przenosimy się
are
do tego
moving to
kolejnego
this new
bloku
thematic block.
tematycznego
So
CEF,
Transport 2021-2027, new
nowe
challenges,
wyzwania.
but we
No,
will
oczywiście też opowiemy
also
o tym, jakie
tell you
tkwią
about the
w tym
possibilities
naborze
under the call
możliwości.
for
Dlatego na
proposals.
scenę zapraszam
So
ponownie
that's
pana
why I'd
Jarosława
like
Orlińskiego,
Jarosław
dyrektora Departamentu
Orliński, the
Programów
director of the
Infrastrukturalnych w
Department of
Ministerstwie Funduszy i
Infrastructure
Polityki
Program at the
Regionalnej,
Ministry of
który
Funds and
wygłosi
Regional
prezentację na temat
Policy
możliwości
to the
rozwoju
stage,
sektora
and
transportu
he
dzięki
will
wsparciu
give us a
ze
presentation
środków
on the
instrumentu Łącząc
possibilities of
Europę w
developing the
perspektywie
transport
finansowej
sector with the help of the support from the
2021-2027.
Connecting Europe facility in the financial horizon 2021-27. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you after the break. I'd like to thank the speakers for the presentation that we've just seen and heard. That was very interesting panel. Paweł Engel, summarizing today's panel, said that we have resources, we have ideas, we have the personal, skilled personnel. So what are we missing? Well, first of all, money that is necessary to implement the ideas. So let me tell you about the objectives and the possibilities of financing from the Connecting Europe facility. Well, we'll be talking about the projects that were mentioned today as well. This is a brief overview of the information that was already presented by the previous speakers from the European Commission, from CINEA. I'd like to tell you about the objectives of CEF2, or the first competition call for proposals announced by the European Commission on the 16th of September this year. So 2021-27, well, this CEF continues CEF1, 14-20. And also from the perspective of the basic components, well, I've mentioned that in the morning, so transport is the biggest component, part of TNT transport network. We deal with the gas component, this is the energy network 10i, and also digital technologies element, also very important. Now, what's involved in the transport element? We are talking about focusing not just on TNT network, just as previously, but we have to remember that in the European Union we implement specific strategies, and they include European Green Deal, and with the help of this strategy we also have a certain vision of Europe's development up until 2050. So all money provided by the European Union under new financial horizon are to implement the Green Deal. So therefore the activities done under CEF2 has to be consistent with this strategy as well. So we are talking about actions, measures that are not just connected with inclusive transport, but first and foremost a transport that emphasizes climate change, focus on that. What's worth stressing as on the slide? These are new connections, interoperability, intermodal networks. We are also talking about all elements that were so far supported by CEF1. What's different here? How CEF2 differs from CEF1? Well, the focus on the climate change, on the environmental protection, over 60% of money must cover the actions that are connected with climate protection. And the last subject shows you the certain difference between CEF2 and 1. So new challenges faced by the whole European Union. Right now, Poland and Baltic seas as well. You can see what is happening on the eastern border of the European Union. So this element that is outlined here, maybe the financial aspect is not huge, but it is also focusing on these actions to dual use, for instance, so civil but also military mobility element. So how about the budget? It is quite similar to CEF1, but €1 billion more as compared to CEF1, especially dedicated to transport. Over €1 billion more will be spent on transport sector. We have also further support for energy, 6 billion, digital technologies over €2 billion. But what we are interested today is the transport sector, almost €26 billion of money that will be allocated to CEF transport under 2021-27 financial horizon. And how this pool is divided, broken down. So the slide shows you that the data is comparable to CEF1, but we need to notice that when it comes to the general envelope under which all EU countries apply, all beneficiaries apply, well, the financial emphasis is shifted to the possibility to apply for money under general envelope. Why is that? Well, this is due to the climate change and the projects connected with alternative fuels, which are the focus of the European Commission and CINEA under this horizon. Well, let me mention another element that differentiates CEF1 and CEF2. So military mobility, over almost €1.7 billion dedicated to that. I will tell you more about that in a moment. And now, moving on to the general envelope, general pool that is important to all members of the European Union. We also have some subcategories to finance the projects. As a rule, the level of co-financing is definitely lower than in the cohesion pool, because as a rule we have different projects here. Projects that are infrastructural projects, but also study projects, documentation projects, and as regards study projects, the co-financing will be 50%. As regards infrastructural projects, they can count on 30% of financing, but there are some exclusions as well. As you can see here, this exclusion applies to projects, transnational projects, so they can count on 50% financing, but the condition here is the agreement between countries, because without this agreement, international agreement, there cannot be any financing. So about the cohesion projects, if we have trans-border projects, the financing can match the proposal of the cohesion pool. So this is a novelty here. And a difference from CEF1. There was no such possibility offered under CEF1. And Poland, when negotiating the resolution, CEF1 resolution, has emphasized that, and that was quite successfully negotiated. And we thank the coordinators and European Commission for that. So we are also talking about financing of up to 85%. So this is the financing of study projects, investment projects. So the situation is similar here. And now military mobility financing can be up to 50%. So this is, there are some nuances here when it comes to the specific elements that can be financed. We are talking about financing standards connected with improving military mobility. This is where the support can be obtained. But it's a novelty that this area actually appeared here, because before European Union was not really following this direction. But the challenges that we face right now, Poland or Baltic countries, give us the possibility to use this kind of solution. And now about the competition that was announced on the 16th of September. There are some elements, sub-elements presented here, and in total we are talking about over 7 billion euros of available money. In the end of this table, we have a summary. 6 billion euro covers the basic projects. They've been actually broken down into pools, general one, cohesion one, and the amount of money that is dedicated to the areas. And it is worth mentioning that, as you can see, over 1 billion euro will be dedicated to the alternative fuels infrastructure. We talked about it today, about Lotos projects and our Orlen's aspirations. We encourage both companies. Lotos said that they will continue their support for CEF projects, and we would like to encourage the group to use the money, because I hope that you will actually submit this kind of projects for co-financing. Now, projects connected with military mobility, not all money was dedicated to support. This is only 330 million euro. I am saying only, but those projects are very special, so this pool is not really very small. Now, the timeline. The timeline starts running on the 16th of September of 2021, when European Commission, together with CINEA, announced the call for proposals, and then the Polish timeline. You have here the deadlines. Some of them were completed. 11th of October. The ideas for the projects were submitted in the Ministry of Funds and Regional Policy. We've evaluated in a way those ideas and presented info to the beneficiaries. And we've cooperated with other ministries and institutions that were very helpful when it came to presenting opinions about those projects. And we have been positively surprised, because, as you know, we had 100 ideas, 100 proposals.
do wykonania po naszej stronie, po stronie i Ministerstwa Funduszy Polityki Regionalnej, ale też i Centrum Unii Projektów Transportowych. No, ale z drugiej strony jest to pozytywne, bo w tym momencie mamy z czego wybierać w tym pierwszym konkursie. Natomiast teraz tak naprawdę musimy postawić na jakość. I to jest nasze główne zadanie wspólne i naszego resortu, ale też i Centrum Unii Projektów Transportowych, żebyśmy wybrali te projekty, które w tym momencie mają największą szansę. To nie jest tak, że my w tym momencie skreślamy te projekty, które są mniej dojrzałe, natomiast jakby zwracamy uwagę, że są też inne konkursy które będą organizowane i może warto na chwilę poczekać, przygotować się, zyskać też wszystkie administracyjne, so that the readiness, the maturity is greater, so that the support is actually granted. December 1st, we have the conference summarizing CEF 1, showing what we want to do under CEF 2. And the internal timeline shows that we, from you, we expect filled in applications. And we hope that today we will be receiving the applications, completed applications, and I want to emphasize a difference, like this CEF2 and CEF1. You need to state the scope of your experience for monitoring. This is important not only because you will be signing a contract with the Commission represented by CINEA, but also at national level, we are performing certain actions connected with our regulations, and it is important for us that the projects are delivered. We are here to help you, not to disturb you. The key date, from our point of view and from the point of view of the Commission and CINEA, this is the 19th of January. This is the deadline at 5 p.m. for the submission of the applications. And the applications that are sent past the deadline, and it's not so easy because they are sent electronically. Those that are sent past the deadline will be rejected, and the evaluation will be at the level of CINEA with external experts between January and May 2022, and then the relevant services of the Commission will be included in the evaluation, and in June the decisions will be communicated which of the projects will be supported and in what scope. Later you will be able to sign the agreements with CINEA. To do this, before you do this, there will be internal talks between the beneficiaries and CINEA to prepare the so-called grant agreements. That will enable you to quickly deliver your investment. So this the process of signing the grant agreements, that should be starting in October 2022, maybe earlier. It depends how many applications there are in the first competition, and from what CINEA is communicating, this call is enjoying great interest. So we want you to remember that the projects need to be well prepared. As regards some information that maybe I did not provide during today's speech, contact us directly or contact the TUP, and on the website of CEF.gov.pl you can receive all the information about the competition. You can also find information on the website of the Commission and on the website of CINEA. Time, as I can see, is flying, but maybe just a couple of words about certain challenges ahead. I shall not discuss all the slides in detail. Certainly, this is a question of focusing further on the elements that were not implemented under TEN-T. We have some commitments and we will be stressing such projects, cross-border connections, eliminating the missing links, eliminating the bottlenecks on TEN-T. But also we are paying a lot of attention to alternative fuels. That's why we signed the agreement regarding the hydrogen investments, also climate change and the allocation that has to be spent on that. And to simplify your lives, we and CUPT are here for you so that the projects can be prepared in the best possible way. We also want new beneficiaries to come, not just the ones who are here today. So we will be organizing meetings like that, more meetings like that to prepare you. We'll have open days to prepare you better for the competitions to come. We are meeting beneficiaries regarding the topic of military mobility, so that also these projects are of appropriate quality, and we want to ask the Commission so that everything is complemented with technical assistance. We hope that after 24 the Commission will also remember about technical assistance for us and for CUPT, so that we can promote the events like today's event. Thank you very much. Thank you. Stay with us, Director. Thank you for this presentation, actually for both the presentations, two parts of one presentation. But we will be grateful if we could summarize this event. Many things have been said. We have learned about the beneficiaries' perspective, so could you please summarize the meeting? Thank you very much for chairing this meeting. I'd like to thank all of those who watched us online, who participated online. During these years, maybe I can describe my personal experience. In 2016, when we were after the first call for the CEF, within the national envelope, many projects received support. And then we were wondering how soon the projects can be implemented. We are working on the procedures, and what I consider to be the greatest success is that we managed to quickly implement these funds. We are still working on the other projects, but first of all, this system is working. That's what I want to emphasize. This is like moving of a certain system from the EU onto our system. This is not so simple. It takes gigantic works from various institutions, from our ministry, from the CUPT. Another thing worth highlighting is that we are working on another edition under CEF2. We are encouraging you to visit the website cef.gov.pl, where you can find more information. We'll also be organizing open days, so that you, with us and with the Commission, we hope that the Commission colleagues will visit us, the colleagues from CINEA as well, because our cooperation is very good, and the cooperation with DG Mobility is very good. So I extend my regards to the colleagues from the DG and from CINEA, from the colleagues from the Commission. I'd like to thank you for this good cooperation. Unfortunately, like I said, time is flying, so I cannot thank everybody, but I'd like to thank our beneficiaries for their persistence, for implementing projects. I'd like to encourage future beneficiaries to take part. I know that it's not easy, but it is worth it, like it was presented today during today's panel. I want to thank the colleagues from my department. This conference wouldn't be possible without the support of my colleagues from my department. Yesterday they worked almost until midnight, and I want to thank you very much. I'd like to thank the colleagues from the other departments in the Ministry of Funds and Regional Policy who also helped us prepare this conference. And I'd also like to thank the colleagues from the Center for EU Transport Projects for their contribution in the conference and for the contribution to the press conference. So thank you very much, and I encourage you to apply for CEF too. Thank you very much, Director. I'd like to thank all the participants, also those who watched online. We hope that it was a pleasure for you to listen to the presentations, to watch the perspective of the project through the beneficiaries' eyes, and we hope that you have been encouraged to join in under Connecting Europe facility too. We encourage you to familiarize yourselves with the materials about the new programming period for 2021-27 and meet us again. Thank you very much indeed, and I hope see you again. Thank you.